Welcome everybody for joining the meeting today. This training, smartphone technology for your small business. We're excited to introduce Roxanne Best, who will be providing the training today on behalf of the Economic Alliance. So we'll go ahead and do introductions. Kaylin, do you want to go ahead and start?
My name is Kaylin Marshan Banky, and I am the Business Marketing Outreach Specialist here at the Economic Alliance.
Thank you. Mason?
I'm Mason Duke. I'm the Economic Development Specialist at the Economic Alliance.
Diana?
I am Diana Tulu. I'm just conjuring up, an idea for us to get into the business of selling water filters. And I took one of Roxanne's classes and I really got a lot out of it. So I wanted to continue to take classes such as these.
Great, thank you. And Carol?
Hi, Carol Lanigan from Tenasket. I have an Etsy shop and could use some tips on photography.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Again, I'm Ronnie Holder-Diefenbach from the Economic Alliance, and I'd now like to turn it over to Roxanne Best, who will introduce herself and get us started on this training today.
Hello. My name is Roxanne Bess, and I'm not going to do my full introduction until I get into the slides, but I do want to let you know that if you see me looking up, it's because my screen is up here and the camera's down here. So I'll be looking at the monitor to see you guys and to look at the slides. So if you're like, why is she looking up? That's why. So I'm going to do my best to look at the slides, but I like to see your faces, and I'm so excited that you're here. Especially Carol, and I know Diana, I know what your business is, but I actually teach this workshop for a cohort of Etsy shop builders. So hopefully you'll get some really good information out of this. And I'm just gonna jump in because I have a lot to cover and I have a lot of different activities for us to do as well to practice. So I want to make sure I would rather we got it all in and then have a lot of time for questions than we ran out of time and I didn't get everything in. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started with the presentation. And I'm going to cross my fingers that my Canva presentation is going to stay active. All right, so smartphone photography for businesses. This is designed to help people who need to get images, photos, videos for their business, for social media, for their website, for their Etsy shop, or wherever they might be promoting their business, product, or service. So a lot of times we can hire a branding photographer to do this for us. But if we can develop some basic skills using the device that we have with us all the time, it's going to make a huge difference. So welcome, you're here. I'm super excited. Today, just a quick agenda. We're going to talk about why smartphone photography, some key techniques, and we're going to actually incorporate some activities. So you'll be doing some of the things as well. So if you are tuning in on your phone into the Zoom, you may have to skip some of the activities, but otherwise, I encourage you to have your phone with you. And then I'm going to just talk about the top 10 techniques plus one extra, actually probably multiple extras, but because I want to also incorporate some editing, so post-processing. So the 10 techniques that we'll be covering are using natural lighting, how to stabilize your camera, why we would use a clean background in our photos, developing skills with focus and composition, understanding how to use macro mode if we want to capture detail in an image, and then edit wisely. This is where I'm going to show a couple of different editing apps that I personally like to use. One of them is free and another one is paid. And then the use of props. and why consistent styling is so important, and how to optimize angles to capture the most interesting photo of your product or service to represent your product or service, and then how interactive content can look in order to engage your audience. So why the skill of photography matters. The number one reason is cost efficiency. So if we are able to capture a majority of our images ourselves using a device that we carry with us all the time, we can avoid expensive equipment and expensive professional fees. So we're already paying for our smartphones. We already have these with us. So why not leverage that tool to help us to save money? And also, I'm an advocate for hiring professional photographers, but most of us can't afford to hire a branding photographer every month. So how are we going to stay consistent and continuously capture images of new products that we might be creating, or brand images to help tell our story? So you can also utilize advanced camera technology in your smartphone to get better results, to get professional results. And we're going to talk more about the actual skills as we progress through. So cost efficiency is the number one reason to do this. So just to dive a little bit deeper into a typical branding photo session could cost anywhere from $1,200 to $5,000. This is going to depend on the complexity of the shoot, like how many props, how many different locations, how many images are you going to get? Are there going to be edits? Also, you want to understand the reputation of the photographer. How much, look at their portfolio, what images have they done? And if they share their portfolio, how recent are the images that they're showing you? So a lot of times in branding photo shoots, there's a lot of planning that goes into this process. So I know when I do branding photo shoots, which I don't do them a ton anymore, but when I work with individuals that want to do a branding photo shoot, I have a pre-meeting with them and we talk about their brand, their colors, the types of images they want. We basically do a strategic planning session, and that usually lasts depending on how much of it they have together, that will last anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. And then we gather all the resources that they will need for their shoot. And this is where things might start to become more expensive. So if the photographer is providing all of the props to get your shoot ready, then they potentially have to go purchase items in order to stage your branding shoot, especially if it's a product shoot. And then, if you're bringing it all, again, that's another cost reducing option. And also, again, it depends on the photographer you're working with. And then post-production work. So are you getting raw images straight out of the camera, or are they going to edit and make them look really nice and on brand for you? So that's where those costs can start to get up to that $5,000 range. So for an amateur product photographer, hourly rates might range from $50 to $100 per hour. While professional photographers that have a ton of experience in this field could charge anywhere from $300 to $500 per hour, because you're looking at a photo shoot, kind of like the image here, where they're using specific equipment to bring out the best characteristics of your product. And so that's and they're it's a lot. So pricing per product can range anywhere from $20 per product to $300. So sometimes, and I've seen this too, where you're like, I only have 5 items that I need photographed, and you can, depending on the photographer and their level of experience, a lower end would be $20 per product. and the higher end would be right around that $300 per product. And the number of images that you would receive per product would depend on the agreement that you made with that photographer. So you want to make sure that you have really straightforward conversations if you ever do hire a professional photographer. But if you don't have this kind of a budget to create promotional materials to get images out on your social media or your website, the space where you're selling your products or services, this is why having the skill of being able to capture your own images using your smartphone without having to go out and purchase expensive equipment. So a number two reason why this skill matters is speed and flexibility, quick adaptation to market trends and consumer interactions. So if every time we want to capture a cool image, we're waiting for our photographer to have an open schedule, we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. We're not going to get a quick turnaround as well. So by having the ability to capture these images ourselves, we can get the photos ready like right after we take the picture and post it to our website or to our social media platforms. And the flexibility is it's only up to you and your time and when you set that aside. So capturing and publishing photos right away is such a great option, and feeling like the images that you're capturing are of that professional photographer capacity. So quick adaptation to trends and consumer interactions. So if let's say you're at an event and you meet some clients that have purchased from you and they're raving about your product or your service, why not capture a selfie with them and ask them to do a testimonial and possibly capture a video of that interaction, of them talking about how great their experience was with your product. And then, with their permission, posting that on your website or posting it on your social media platforms. So, but if we were waiting for our professional photographer to capture these moments, we would miss a majority of these moments. So, number three reason why having smartphone photography skills matters for you and your business is you will get a better and a more enhanced presence online. So you'll be able to create more consistency. You'll be able to update content on a more regular basis. And of course, if you have a budget to hire a branding photographer once a month and get 30 days of content or images that you could put on social media, then that's great. That's consistency. However, if that's not something that is in your budget, with our smartphones, we can capture some really, really fantastic images and get that out there on our platforms faster than hiring a professional. So another element is you're building trust and brand recognition with having higher quality images. So we've probably seen product images and we're like, oh, I wouldn't want to buy that, especially when it comes to food photography. I've seen some like menus in restaurants and I'm like, I don't know who thought it was a good idea to put these images of this food on your menu because it does not look appetizing. So we get, and I bet you that those restaurants hired a food photographer to come in and capture those images. And they may have been amazing delivered to the business. And then when they went to print, the images didn't look as fabulous as when the photographer took them. So being able to create a look and feel around your brand by getting more and more images out there of what you are providing will create more trust and brand recognition. And then you're also better equipped to tell your story the way that you would tell your story. One of the things that people always used to question me about as a photographer, I'm always teaching new photographers skills. I'm like, talking about equipment, and I'm super open about sharing knowledge that I have about photography with other photographers. And I've had my own experience with photographers that are like super closed lips. They don't share anything. You know, they're like, you need to figure it out on your own. And I've never been that way. And people are like, why are you so open with sharing knowledge about photography? Well, everybody's view through the lens, what they capture is going to be completely different from what I'm seeing and what I capture. So that brings that unique voice of you, the creator, through the lens, as opposed to having a photographer and hoping and praying that they're going to capture what it is that we want them to capture. So for example, I'm going to go back to this intro slide. This is a picture that a professional photographer took of me. I like it. It does not, my face does not look anywhere the way that I would want it to look. If I got the raw images and were able to edit these images, I would have changed things. I would have had me do the same thing, but pose differently. Now, if I was doing the shoot, because I've done this exact same pose myself, doing selfies, and I look fantastic. I only have one chin in the pictures that I take. My tongue looks more normal. And my bangs are usually, I do this after I go to the salon, so my bangs are a normal length and my hair is more put together. So this, I mean, it's an okay image at a glance. It captures my personality and my character, but when you start to pick the image apart, I'm not super impressed with it. But I just wanted to show, like, that's a prime example of it was up to the photographer to interpret and get my brand out in an image in a really short period of time, because it was branding mini sessions. So it was like 10 minutes, boom, 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 taking photos, and then we moved on. So when you're able to capture images even of yourself, you can be more intentional about, because you know your best angles. You, like, when you look in the mirror, you know which way you turn your head. Or when you do selfies, I always tell people, when you do selfies, what side do you take the picture on? That's the side that you like best. So understanding that also helps you when you're creating those brand images. This is going to empower your business with the tools that you already own. All right, so before we move on, are there any questions or comments about, do you need more evidence on why it's so important? I mean, you're here, so you're already halfway sold on the idea of why it's important to be able to capture your own images. But I would just want to check in and see if you have any questions about what I have covered so far.
Nope.
Thank you. So before we move on, I just want to circle back around and introduce myself. My name is Roxanne Best, and I have been a photographer for many years. My career as a photographer started as an underwater photographer when I was a scuba diving instructor. And I started as a photographer before digital photography became popular. And so I was shooting underwater in conditions using slide film where you had to be super precise with your settings. And so you had to really be in tune with lighting and the different conditions that were surrounding you. And so because you didn't get to look at the back of the screen and figure out, like, is this a good photo or not, and then take another one if it wasn't, you once your dive was over, we got back on the boat, we developed the film on the boat, and then we learned whether or not we had good exposures, good composition. And so I learned to shoot through the camera for the best results and get composition and have settings that captured the best images. And after my life as an underwater photographer and videographer, then I started to apprentice with a wedding photographer in Hawaii. It's when I lived in Hawaii. And that was fun, but I quickly realized that I didn't want to be a wedding photographer. It's a lot of work, and it's high stress, but the pay is great. But I learned a lot about posing and capturing angles and directing my models to look the best that they possibly can. through that experience. And then I went to culinary arts school, and then I became obsessed with food photography. I was more interested in the plating and making the plate look really amazing and capturing an image of it than I was with the actual making of the food. And that was where I figured out I don't want to be a chef, I want to be a food photographer. And I never really explored food photography as a career. I mostly did it for fun for myself. And and I also started my photography business in 2014. And when smartphones started to get better and better at taking photos, I was like getting less gigs. People weren't hiring me to do their birthday party events and other things because they could capture those images on their smartphones. And so I was like, you know what, this a great idea would be is to teach people how to get better photos with their smartphones. And so I started to put together a smartphone photography workshop. And one of the organizations that I worked with was like, hey, we're doing an Etsy program, and I see you do a photo workshop. Would you teach it to our Etsy group? And so that was where this really started to blossom into what it is now. So in a nutshell, that's me. There's more, and maybe a lot of my story unfolds as I teach because I use myself as an example quite often. I am self-employed, and I run my business full time. So, and I am a solopreneur. I don't have staff. Unless I'm at events that are offering like special photo sessions or anything like that, I usually capture all of my own images. And 99% of the time, it's on my phone, not using my big DSLR camera. And most all of us, when we first start out in photography, we are natural light photographers because natural light is the easiest for us to begin to understand. It's also one of the hardest light sources to control. But we want to make sure that when we're using natural light, we don't want to have super harsh shadows. And the way that we do that is by using filtered light. You can see the two examples here. One is window light and the other is filtered through trees. Another option is cloud cover. A lot of times when I do photo shoots, my clients would be super bummed out because it was an overcast day and it wasn't super bright and sunny. But in reality, having that cloud cover made for a way better photo session than if it was a super bright sunny day. So natural light, understanding the quality of the light, and also placement of your product image. So here's a couple of images using natural light. You can see the one on the left is super diffused. This is early morning light. So early morning light coming through has kind of a soft glow about it. So sunrises are always like this soft awakening kind of a feeling. And it's diffused through the windows or curtains. Using this early morning light, the angle of the light is great for capturing, like you can see the image on the right, the texture of the muffin and the texture of the blanket and also the texture of the wood plate that the cup and muffin are sitting on. So it's a great way to capture the textures because of the angle of the image. So if you have a product that you want to highlight the beautiful texture of that item, using early morning light is a great option. So here's a couple more examples of using morning light. So these are actual photos that I've taken. So the one on the left is diffused morning light in a Himalayan salt room. The pink hue that's cast on the image is actually the light that is in that room because Himalayan salt is pink, and so it's a natural reflection of that space, and so that's filtered through the window as well as through the curtains. And you can see the gentle cast of the shadows from the bulbs. And there isn't like a super harsh shadow from the tree either. So these are all things to think about so it softens the shadows. The image on the right is early morning light. It's a gym photo. I was just trying to capture action. So it's not so much getting like a super clear, crisp image of this model. It was more about capturing the action of the movement. And I just liked the way the light hit everything and just gave it a sense of activity and action. So another is late afternoon light, which is often referred to as the golden hour. So sunset, the light tends to become more golden and it's warm and inviting. And it's most photographers love doing either really early morning photo sessions or when the sun's setting, right before the sun sets and right after the sunset. It's just a beautiful soft light for portraits. But it can also be amazing for products. Like the image on the right, you're seeing the cast of the shadow, and you can see the bar with the bags hanging on it. Not a great product photo, but you can see how you might incorporate that if what your product is you want to invoke that sense of softness and warmth. So depending on, like, I'm thinking if I ever had the patience to make quilts or to make like one of my favorite things are like Afghans. I don't have one, but my friend has Afghans, and whenever I go to their house, I'm just like always snuggled up. And I just imagine this like warm golden light to capture the texture of that experience. So just a couple more examples. So the image up here, this was right, obviously it was an evening, it was right after sunset. So the sky was still a little bit like uh, gray, blue. And so it just got this really soft light of the clock in Okanagan. The one on the bottom, this one is a little bit, it's not quite sunset, but I just wanted to give the example of the angle of the light and how it highlights the little girl's hair. So you get this nice ring light. So if you can create that same effect either with your models, if you're using models, or you're photographing your product. So it will create this nice ring light halo around the subject. And then the other image is sunset in a stand-up paddleboard yoga class. And you can see how the folks in poses are not so much in focus. It's more about like they're more silhouettes. So again, it's a mood, it's a feeling more than anything else. So the next is using a sheer curtain to diffuse direct sunlight on shiny products to avoid harsh reflections and ensure the details are not lost. So if we have super harsh lights, if we go back to this photo of the person in the gym, we've lost a lot of the detail. Like over here, you can see it's like this cool panel of wood, but you can't see the detail of it down in the lower areas. There's not a lot of detail in the floor. So that's not diffuse light. It's coming through a window, but it's really intense morning light. And so if we were to diffuse that a little bit, then we would be able to pull more details in the room. So another little tip. Oftentimes I will intentionally overexpose an image because I actually will use this to put like a quote down here where it's blown out, where you don't see any texture or anything. So that's where I would add like join my boot camp starting May 31st, or whatever you're putting in there. Like I'll be at an event, an art market on XYZ day. So I often will intentionally create images like this, because then I can add text and the text will pop and it doesn't get lost in the background. But you get the essence of the image. But if you want to get all the details, using filtered light is definitely going to do that. And that's why I love overcast days for photo shoots. But if you're in your home and you window light coming in and it's really harsh light, then we can use a curtain, or I've used a sheet. I've used so many different. I've used tissue paper from like when you get like white tissue paper. I've used that to block light as well to get it more diffused. The best is and the best is windows that have like all the hard water buildup on them. The diffusion through those windows is so amazing. It's so delightful. And this image in the lower right hand corner actually was captured using diffused window light. It was a farm stand, and the window was just, it was gorgeous morning light, and we just like harvested this I always forget what this is called. It's not kale. But it's like beautiful colors, and the light was just really nice and diffused. And I was always told my friend, like, if you ever sell this space, just let me buy the window, because I want that window just to diffuse light through it, because it's like it had all the hard water stains on it from like the sprinklers. It was just amazing. And this bottom image, this is a sunrise. So you can see the sun just peeking up over the mountain, and then it's just casting this really nice little spray of light to the students. The water is nice and calm, and you can see how it's capturing the texture on the water. And I didn't edit this image, but I definitely see where I could do some really cool edits and make this even better. But it was more about the participants and their reflections on the calm water and just that beautiful ray of sunlight. This one is afternoon light coming through a window. And we're just really trying to highlight like the beads on this necklace for my friend. And I was like, well, let's do that. Let's do a picture by the window. And you can see the ring light around her fingers. So it's just casting this nice light around, and then shadow in her hands. And then the beads are lit. This is inside. So there's no natural light. This is all artificial light. And it's just about composition and exposure and depth of field. This is window light also in a macaron shop. I was like purple and yellow, and the shop had this really cool like yellow platter and this really cool wallpaper or tiles in the background. So I asked the baker if I could stage a little photo, and this was my iPhone, so you can see the details that were captured. And I just put it on this yellow platter, which is like a cake stand, and then the natural light from the window just created this really cool image. And then this is also window light. It's backlit and front lit, so I reflected light back into the image. So just different examples, very different looks and feels, but just showing you how by just using the light that's available to us and manipulating it, we can capture really cool images. So don't ignore this. My computer was really slow, and I was trying to play around with the editing feature in Canva, and I don't know what I did. So ignore this. This is not what it looks like. But this is a photo session, and I like to share this photo because oftentimes I talk with students and they're like, I don't have a space. I don't have a cool spot where I can take photos. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Find a window, find a spot, clear a spot, and then set it up. So this is a window sill ledge in my son's bedroom, and it just happens to get really awesome light. And I just like literally pushed his stuff out of the way to make a little space so I could take the photo of the moccasins. And this is just two different setups. So this is a light box over on the right hand side. And I welcome, and I like to use 3-ring binders underneath because it just reflects light back up. So it's a little reflective. And I actually use and I'm going to go more into tools later on, but I use a white foam. See, it's not even pretty. I intentionally brought my not pretty one so you could see that it doesn't really matter. And I just use this. And so if you're looking at the light box, I just use this in front of the light box and then I take the photo over it. So it's reflecting light back into the moccasins. And then the image on the left is another setup that I often did, which is just using poster board as a reflector / diffuser just to get a different effect in the photos. So again, this is just to demonstrate that you don't have to have this designated studio space that's beautiful and fantastic to take your photos. It is nice if you can have a station, especially if you do product images, where you can just put your stuff in, take a photo, and then it's just sort of, it's just there all the time. So you're never like in a situation where you have to unpack a bunch of things and then set it up and get everything ready. It is nice to have a designated area, but in a pinch, a window will do. Right. So before we move on, any questions? I'm going to keep it on when it's not showing my messy window. Any experience from anyone in here using natural light to capture images?
I personally try to, when I'm like thinking of just images and stuff, like portrait mode is going to be the setting. But yeah, I try to use like pictures of my kids and like the horses and our animals and stuff like that.
Yes, I love that. It's great for big animals because then you don't have to have a big giant light source. You have the sun.
Yeah.
See, chat.
Welcome, Marcy. While we're doing quick questions, thank you for being here. I'm glad you made it. And do you want to do a quick introduction and just tell us who you are before we move on?
Yeah, I'm Marcy. I'm just I saw this on the library website, and if I know something, I can pass it on to somebody that might find it useful. So I just came for the knowledge. And I let the librarian know too that the Alliance, oh, I forgot the name of it, Alliance is not in the Oroville Library, so the civic room. So, but I'm just glad to be here. Thanks for teaching me.
Yeah, glad you're here. Thank you. Hopefully you'll get some good stuff from our class. Right.
Roxanne?
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that that the Economic Alliance has some light boxes and some lighting for small businesses that you can access and utilize. You just contact us and you can check them out and bring them back. And we actually can go and help you set them up and work on some of these things. So I just wanted to let those on the phone and those who will be watching at a later date on our YouTube channel know that we do have those available for people to check out.
That's good to know.
At no cost to the person.
Yeah, that's a fantastic resource. And definitely, if you have products and you need a light box but don't have one of your own, it's a great opportunity.
As well as Mason and I are out doing outreach often, so if you're not able to market, we can always bring that stuff with us and head in your direction to do outreach as well.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. So the next is stabilization. So oftentimes, if we are solopreneurs and we are working on capturing images of ourselves, or maybe we have to be the model that's wearing whatever it is that we made. And so if we're always doing selfie mode or holding the camera out and trying to capture the images, it makes it really difficult. And it's always really obvious that it's our arm holding the camera. So I always recommend getting yourself a tripod or something to stabilize your images with. And I brought a few examples. So I have tripods everywhere. I see a new version and I check it out to see, is that going to be a good version? And so I'm just going to show a couple of different versions. I'm actually going to go through this slide and then I'm going to show some versions. That way you can see it in full screen and you're not seeing the image and then me in a little square and trying to see what the tripods look like. And I'll tell you why I like certain features on the different tripods. This is you don't have to have a tripod. I've used like a cup and then just propped it up against the cup to take the photo. I've used weights in the gym. I've used a bag or my purse on the floor. So there's tons of ways that you can stabilize your camera. But some of the reasons that you would want to is to make sure you're getting sharper images, especially if you're taking product photos. You want to have that sharpness so that because people are more likely to be interested in your photo or your product if it's a sharp image. When you see blurry images, it's like the brain is unclear because the image is unclear. So having sharp images makes a huge difference. We're talking about portrait mode, and portrait mode is another option where we're intentionally having sharpness of the subject and the background is blurred. So I'll show you, we're going to go over all the different modes towards the second half of our class. But understanding your composition and being able to use something that will keep your camera stable and also potentially help you be hands-free so you can, do your own photo shoots. So some ways that you can stabilize, use a stack of books. I've used my laptop. I've actually put my phone here on my laptop and did a quick little woo. Actually, when we were doing our social media examples, I just propped it up on my laptop to shoot the videos that we did. So there's tons and tons of options. The thing to remember is make sure your phone is stable, because I'd hate for you to prop it up on a fence or something and then the wind blows and it topples off and breaks your screen. So always make sure that it is secure. So I've had my iPad set up on a tripod and then a bit outside and big wind comes and it pops it over. Thank the technology gods that it did not break my iPad, but man, that could have been really tragic. So making sure that it's secure, especially if you're shooting outside. And then you can use a smartphone holder or a clamp in combination with the basic tripod, which I'm going to show you guys all of those. You can use a gimbal to stabilize, and that's going to just make everything kind of glide and be really smooth. Most cameras now have internal gimbal stabilization, so it isn't as necessary, but they definitely make for some cool content creation. However, they do have a learning curve, so you do have to understand how to balance and all the different things. I actually bought a gimbal and thought it was going to change my life and it was going to be the best thing ever because I was going to start my YouTube channel and I wanted the gimbal. It was a pain. It was a pain because I would switch from my smartphone to my DSLR a lot. And so every time I switched, I had to restabilize the gimbal. And then it just was frustrating. I actually tested it out and then it was so frustrating, I returned it. But they do work great. If all you're going to do is use your smartphone, then it's always going to be stabilized for your smartphone. So that'll be quick and easy. But if you're trying to use your, because I have a heavy DSLR camera and then putting it on, and before it was balanced, it would just go whoop because my lens was so heavy. It was just really, it wasn't a great experience. But if you get one specifically for your smartphone and that's all you're going to use, then they're actually pretty awesome. Diana, ooh, look at that, Diana. Did you just take that? So there's a really beautiful image that Diana put in the chat if you want to look at that. Window light. Oh, look at your fan. So nice. Look at you. Great, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the screen share just for a moment so that I'm bigger on your screen because I want to show you some of the tripods that I've used in the past. So this is one of my original tripods, and I thought this was the one that it's not the one that's broken. So you can see it pops open and then it locks so that it doesn't undo. I'm just going to try laptop a little bit out of the way so I can use the table. So then it stands up and then it's there. So to adjust the height, you pop these out and then you lock it down. So then that's the height adjustment. The camera goes in here. And one of the things that I like about this is that you can take this piece off. So I have another attachment that fits my iPad in it. So sometimes I'll put my iPad attachment here. So you can, but anyway, so this is just one of the tripods and it gets pretty tall. So I'm just going to open up two, and there's two more heights. So it would go almost as tall as me. So this would be close to eyeball height for me. So nice tripod. The phone just fits in like that. And so let me lower. So it just fits in. So then the way that you would adjust, so I'm going to turn it this way. The way that you would adjust for landscape mode, which is this long ways, or portrait mode, which is up and down, is this way. So you just turn it. This one has been through the ringer. It has been on hikes. It has been to the gym. It has been thrown around in bags and suitcases and abused. This one I just use for examples now. But you can see I have to do a lot of things. So my whole mission in life is to do the least with the most. So my new favorite tripod, 2, is this one. And then this is the one, this one lives in my home. It doesn't go anywhere. But it's got a flat-based bottom. So it usually just sits on a table. And you can adjust it here. I'm just gonna lock that in place. But you can see it has all these different arms to create different angles. So this is one of the reasons I really like it for people that make products, is because you can adjust this in a way that your camera can be facing down. So then I can put my phone in and then start recording. And then I can sit here, and so everything is framed, and I can just make my thing. And it's recording from the top down. So it's getting my hands. And then what I usually like to do is I'll look through the lens and I'll map out. I'm out of the frame if I go here. I'm out of the frame if I go too far this way. So then I know what my working area is to be captured in the video or in the image. That's one reason I love this feature. Another reason is because I can adjust it to the just perfect height so that if I was standing, I can make it just the perfect height for me to put my tripod in. And then now it's eye height, so I can talk to it like I'm talking to my friend. Or I can do a photo, like let's say I'm photographing this necklace. I can frame in so that I'm bringing awareness to the necklace. So it's right here. You can angle it. But it's super stable. I love it. So if I wanted it to be taller, I can make it taller. I can make it shorter. But this one's designed to just be on a desktop. And actually, it lives on a table in my house. And I have it perfectly. I'm going to have to readjust, but I just go, okay, I need to do a talking head video to do some social media content. And sometimes I'll do things like, and then I'll move it, and then I'll start talking. So, tripod number 2. My most favorite is this one. This one, I have one in my gym bag, I have one in my car. And it's super compact. You can see it fit in this little bag. It fits in my tote bag. And so this, I actually just bought another one because I love it so much. So this base at the bottom opens up. And then you lock it, turn this here, and it's super stable. And the reason why I like this one, because it does the most without a lot of effort, is in order to telescope it, I just pull. So I'm not like flipping, locking, and doing all the things. This one actually just literally came out of the box, so it's a little bit more sticky. But you can see how tall it is as well. So it goes pretty tall. One thing I would say with this one is don't push it while it's standing up because you'll break these legs. The other thing that I love is it has a remote that attaches right here. So this is great for shooting photos. So one of the other ways that I use this is let's say I'm doing a product that is right here on the table. Let's say I'm photographing my glasses. So then I'll put my phone in. And this one has a twist to open it to get the right size. So it isn't that quick split, which I actually like this better. I feel like it's more secure. But then you just pull it to where my phone fits in, and then I can turn my camera, frame it up to where I want it, and then take the photo. And so let's say that I've got this perfectly set up, lighting is great. I have multiple pairs of glasses that I need to photograph. I can mark a spot, and then I could, let's say, okay, then I take these away, then I put the new pair down, take a photo. Take these away, put the new pair down, take a photo. Everything is set up, and this is how you can assembly line it. If I was holding my phone, and I'm like, okay, I've got it. Okay, there we go. It's set up. Take the photo. New pair. I just moved my phone so it's not framed up anymore. So then I have to reframe it and then take the photo. Whereas if it's just sitting on the tripod, you can assembly line it, especially if it's similar items. If you're doing like a big water bottle and then you're doing a little tiny like shot glass, that's when you might need to make adjustments between. But if you're doing a whole bunch of the same size water bottles, you can assembly line it. Another reason I love a tripod. The last tripod is, this one is actually meant for one of my mirrorless cameras, but these are really nice because what I can do is I could remove this guy right here. I can attach it here. Now it's a iPhone. You can do this with any tripod. And there it is. And one of the things that I like about this one's great for hiking. It's lightweight, but it also has these bendable legs. So these are kind of cool for odd surfaces. It does not telescope, but it's super nice. Like maybe you want to wrap it around a tree or something so that it will hold on. Let's pretend that's a fence post, and so it'll hold on there. So it just has some diversity. I mean, the problem is it doesn't. It's pretty short. It doesn't have telescoping, but this is also nice for photos. You can change the angle. Has this nice little ball in here. And all of these tripods, you can find them on Amazon. This one came in a kit for a camera, but there's tons of tripods that have the bendy legs like this one. So this is awesome. And the last one I'm going to show you, this one is mostly for folks that are doing selfies or talking head videos, and it's going to affect my light because it has a ring light on it. So I'm just going to come over here and grab it. I'm going to make sure I don't mess anything up. So I'm not going to point the light at you. You can see it has two ring lights. Right now, one of them is defective. I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but we're going to figure it out. I think it's our adapters, but it has a phone attachment right here in the center. And so when I put my phone in, then I'm perfectly lit to capture my images because this ring light, I'm getting light on both ends. And then these bend as well, so I can adjust the lighting accordingly. Super nice for selfies and having good lighting. So I love that guy. But those are tripods. I have other tripods that are a lot more expensive that I use with my big cameras, only because they're more stable. I wouldn't put my DSLR camera, which weighs about 5 pounds or more with the lens on it. I wouldn't want to put it on this tripod. So, any questions about tripods, stabilization devices?
Yeah, I wonder if you could put the names of the tripods that you're using, like in the chat or something.
you know what I'll do is I will get links for the ones that I showed in class,
Oh, good.
and I'll share them with Ronnie, and she can send it to you guys in an email.
Thank you. That'd be great.
So yeah, see, like this one goes right in my toothpick, and I lose it sometimes. All right.
You know, I noticed something too that you were talking about, photographing different pairs of glasses or items on the table. But it occurred to me too that while using a tripod, you could mark a spot on the floor and move the tripod back and forth. Can you say anything more like about that to move the tripod back and forth while keeping it in the same location? You follow what I'm asking?
I think so. Like the item stays, the tripod moves.
Well, the item stays, but like if I noticed you had different size things there, like the glasses is one size, but I mean a mug could be a lot bigger, double the size that you've got. Like if you're photographing different sizes of teddy bears,
Yeah, I
you got
got you. Yeah, you can
yeah.
absolutely do that for sure. Yeah, so then you just move it back so it has more in the frame.
Is there any exact angles like you move it a certain angle for however many inches back you move the tripod?
Not
Or is that too mathematical?
I personally, I know there's formulas out there. I am, I don't really use those. There are like lighting setups and there's grids that you can follow, but there's so many extra circumstances that can change like you might see like lighting setups, like have this one here, and then it's going to be a perfect image. Well, it's not because it depends on the model. um, if you have a certain light setup for a particular, like let's say Mason doesn't have long hair, and then you put him in front of the camera, it might be the perfect setup for Mason. But then you put me, and if I had my braid out and my hair was like it normally is, all crazy, that lighting setup might not work because it may cast shadows on my face. And this is where the creativity and like trusting ourselves to make those decisions about like whether or not to keep the light in the same position, or the tripod, if you will, in the same position. Same goes for if we think about height. All three of us in this room are different heights. So if I'm trying to get a photo, a headshot of all three of us, I would have to adjust the height of the tripod for each of us. And there's no like exact formula, but we know pretty much like I want the lens to be eye height with my models. So I adjust it so the lens is eye height and then go from there. So yeah, that's a great question though. It's a great question. And if I had a formula, that actually worked every time, I'd probably be a millionaire.
I never thought about it in terms of that there might be formulas out there, but you gave me a word to look for. So, photographic formula. So I
Yes.
can search the internet from there.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to search for. Awesome. Any other questions? Jump back in. So using clean backgrounds is, are we there? Using a clean background especially when we're doing a product photo shoot, is going to make a huge difference. I work with a lot of native artists, and they all like to use Pendletons or like really busy backgrounds to photograph their earrings or their work. And I'm always like, no, use a clean background because then your work will stand out as opposed to blending in with the background. And so, using that clean background creates a clear focal point for your product or service that you're featuring. Um, So you can use a roll of butcher paper is a great, like if I like to use white, but you can use a gray, a neutral gray. And then another thing is you can also use like presentation boards that are trifolds, like they fold in and in. I use those, and I just like the bottom part folds out, and it creates this nice photo background. The only problem with that is that it has a line, like, but so when you're using paper, it's this nice curve so that it doesn't have a hard line in the background. So it just makes less editing and post processing, and it looks nice and clean. Another thing, like the image of the gal down at the bottom, where she's kind of like holding her hand out, and then there's a lot of like white space out there. So she could be pointing to a product, she could be referring to a quote, like we're having a big sale. And so there's room for text. So when we're shooting, especially if we're shooting images to potentially use on social media, having that white space where you can add in potential like text information or even another image is super helpful. If you use Canva, you can superimpose a photographed product over different digital backgrounds. And I'm going to show you guys how you can do that in Canva today also. So if you stick around, there's going to be more than just me talking, I promise. And if you've never used Canva before, I'm gonna show you Canva today as well. So an example two for lifestyle shoots, a clean and tidy kitchen counter or well-organized desk can serve as a relevant and distraction-free background. You know, when we're trying to get people to focus on something, the less distractions behind us, the easier it is for people to focus. For example, I'm talking and distracted by my bag behind me. I'm like, I want that to go away. So like being able to compose in a way that feels like we're focusing on what we need to focus on. So here's a couple of examples of images that I have taken. So this image on the far right, where I'm pointing like this at the water, it's a selfie. But I teach stand-up paddleboard yoga, and I was like, can you imagine you here on paddleboard is what the text said. So you can see all this space over here over my finger left room for and this is portrait mode, left space for me to put text. Imagine you here on a paddleboard and the arrow pointed down. This one technically is overexposed, but it was a look that I actually really liked. And again, as photographers, you get to have creative, just lost my word. You can be creative. Do what you like, do what feels good to you, as long as it's intentional. Sometimes you get stuff that's unintentional and you're like, huh, I kind of like that. But again, lots of white space to put a quote or to put, you know, I thought about doing a series of things my teens say and, you know, quotes of teen funny things that kids say today. And then down here, this is a senior portrait session. And I intentionally positioned him like on the far end of the image, looking in that particular direction. And then added this here. This actually is part of the background of the brick. But this would be cool. I could edit this out too and put my own quotes there, which I've done that as well. So having that clean, clear background. Any questions about what are some options for a clean background? It doesn't mean it has to be like a white, a black, a, a gray. You can also use like wood texture, wood grain. As long as it's adding to the overall experience and focal point of your product or service. And it's not taking away. Right. So we are at 10:13. So it's let's do a 5-minute break. It's 10:13. So let's come back at 10:18 just to do a quick bio break, grab a drink or whatever you might need, and then we'll come back and get into focus and composition. Hopefully she'll come back in. All right. So we're back. Any questions before I get into the next section?
I just wanted to say I'm going to have to leave in about 20 minutes, but thank you so much. And I will look forward to watching the rest on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Before you go, what is your Etsy page? And what do you sell on Etsy?
I do glass mosaics, and it's called Mosaic Moments in Glass. And my photos, I have one good photo, and it made such a huge difference, and the rest of them are terrible. So that's why I wanted to take this class.
I need to probably be in Etsy, huh? Probably need to stop. I It's okay to find shops, right? Hold on. Help us out here, Carol. Hold on. So are any of these yours?
Keep going down. That butterfly is mine. Orange butterfly.
Oh, this.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. So I love that. So are you open to some feedback?
Sure.
Look. Okay, so you did. I see the other backgrounds. Perfect. So see how different it looks just with the white background? That's like, it really shows the features of the item as opposed to being, even though this is a plain background, it's almost too much the same color family. That's why it really pops on the white background. And even this, it's beautiful, but it kind of blends in with the background. So just fine. And I love that you show it like where someone might hang it, which is like a great strategy on Etsy, is showing the product in use. Studies have shown that when you photograph your item in use or on a model, people are more likely to purchase it than if they just get a picture like this. Like this is great to show detail, but showing your product in use is actually going to increase sales. So awesome job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that one with the white background's done in a light box.
Okay. Is that all right? I'm just looking. I haven't been on Etsy in so long. Okay, there you are. I'm gonna follow. Click here so we can see. Wow.
See,
Yeah,
now see
see.
that one with the on the third one with the 3 candle holders?
Yeah.
Once I put that one on, I got so many sales of that one. It really showed me how a good photograph really makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and the interesting thing is it's like this one is showing the beautiful glass work, and this one is just showing the feeling of it, right? So that draws people in to click, and that's what we want to try to do is create images that people are like, I need to know more about that, and they click on it, and then they are going to expect more detailed images like this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's that. So yeah, no, very, very good. Great job. Great job.
Really? I think they're terrible.
No, well, just this,
Yeah,
like
that one I like.
the feeling of the image as
Mhm.
opposed to like this one.
Right.
Like how much of a difference lighting makes. Granted, these aren't like super focused. It looks like the camera might have focused on the background, or when it loaded, it might have lowered the resolution.
Well,
But
see, that was done in a dark room, that one.
yeah. So this, were you on a tripod?
No.
See, that's my other thought was if you were doing it in a dark room with low light, if you were on a tripod, it would have captured a more sharp image of the candles.
Uh-huh.
Because when we're in low light, oftentimes the phone will go like you'll take the photo and the little timer thing will go. And so it's capturing, capturing, capturing. So
Right.
any movement of the phone during that time is going to create blur. So if you were on a tripod or stabilized and then took it, it would be a lot sharper. But
Yeah, I like that one.
for a thumbnail image, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, because if you look at it here, you're not seeing that it's a little bit out of focus, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that picture really brought a lot of people in.
I noticed too that the shadow is in front of the candles.
yeah, and that gives, I mean, as a viewer, that gives an impression of window light, like he's sitting in your home in a window or, something. So that the light's coming from behind.
Mhm.
So yeah, good job. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, happy to. All right. So let me get back into. Well, now that I know too, Carol, what you are photographing, I can give some more tips on that stuff specifically. So, great. So focus and composition. This is probably going to be one of your most valuable tools is focus and composition. The way you set up your products, the way that you incorporate backgrounds, the way that you stage is going to really impact the way that someone interprets the image. Um, Wipe up my sleeve. Um, so, for example, so before I get too far into this, does anyone have any questions or comments? So it's a couple of different compositions, and I intentionally tried to pick images that were like very different. The top is, you know, obviously it's food. This isn't my photo, so but the thing to bring your attention to is the eye naturally draws towards the cupcake row, because if you look closely, the red heart on top of that cupcake is like a focal point, right? So even though there's rows and rows and the little mini eclairs on the bottom, they're also in focus. But what we really are drawn to, both because of the angle of the little eclairs and the way things are set up, is towards that middle focus. And now keep in mind too, I cropped this a little bit, so it's not 100% like accurate composition. But you know, even though a big chunk of the desserts are not in focus, the attention is drawn and it creates this curiosity. And then the image below, where you have the lip gloss tubes lined up, and then at the very front, one of the applicators is out. Like that just also like shows like what the applicator looks like. And even though it's not showing a model putting the lip gloss on, you're still getting the idea that this is a lip gloss, because otherwise we may not know at first glance, is this a concealer? Is it, even though the colors like are pretty clear that they're a lip gloss, someone might think it's a color correction thing, you know. So helping to create clarity at first glance is really helpful. And then the image of the coffee beans, this is really just to show that depth of field, and uh, the bouquet in the background, where the background is blurry. So the coffee beans are super sharp, and then it fades into a blurry background. There's a couple of techniques that you can use in your smartphones that will allow you to capture images in that way. And one of them is called portrait mode. So you can create the focal point and then capture that image. So we want to, first of all, make sure that our product is the focal point of the image. I'm going to show you too on your phone how to set up grid mode on your phones, so that you have if you struggle with composition, using the grid mode on your phone will help you with composition. Highlighting a single product feature by placing it at one of the rule of thirds intersections, which the grid mode on your phone will definitely help with that. And then balance the composition by placing the larger or most colorful item in the center, kind of like they did here with the red cupcake. And then also the cupcakes, the bigger cupcakes are in the middle row, and all the smaller things are out. So it's drawing attention and then letting it open out. It's drawing the eyes. So macro mode for detail. So if you have detail in your product, then this is a great way to capture the detail. On our phones, there is a macro mode where like the feathers, you're capturing like light shining through the feather, but also you're getting like the detailed individual plumes at the bottom, and you're just seeing a lot more detail than if you were to not use macro mode and not get the detail. And then the image above is just showing how you can focus in like this flower bush with flowers on it, just focusing in on the flowers and how that creates a interesting image. This is great for when you're doing detail work, to capture some of the details to show the fine workmanship that you put in your products. It's also a great way to just pull out a specific element that you may want to bring as a focal point. Okay, so this is where we are going to start to get into some of the demos. So one of the best tips that I ever got when I first started as a chef and as a photographer was less is more. Oftentimes when we edit or we first start cooking, We want to put all the ingredients and we want to everything we can possibly put in. And then as we mature in our culinary lives, we realize that simple is better. And that is the same for photography. We oftentimes want to use every filter, every little thing we possibly can in our imagery. But if we just keep it simple by doing the least, then we are going to um, then we're going to like actually capture the elements of that image. So making sure that I'm going to show you a free editing tool that I use on my phone, and it's a quick tool. It does the job. I use it probably more than I would like to admit, but it's fantastic. And I'm going to use a photo that I took the other night to demonstrate this process. So I'm going to show you Snapseed, and I'm going to show a little Lightroom demo, and then editing in your phone. So I'm going to first stop this screen share and do a quick check-in to see if anybody has any questions. And if not, put glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. And so before we get into editing on our phones, I want to show you a few settings. So, and then please excuse the potential delay with sharing my screen from my phone. Weird. Just connecting. All right. So now we're on my phone, and I just want to, and I'm using an iPhone. So I am going to show you how to turn on and turn off grid mode. So first thing you're going to do is go to settings, which is the gear icon. So I'm just going to tap on settings, and then this is what you'll see. And so what I'm going to do is go down. I'm going to scroll down to the camera. I hope this is the right screen. Sometimes I get confused. All right, so down here you see camera. I'm just going to tap on camera. So this is where you can do some different settings. So I can record videos, and then you just determine the format. So I'm going to keep that setting right. So here's down here in composition, it says grid. So when you turn grid mode on, I'm going to go ahead and go into my camera. So right now, I'm just going to have it against this dark background. So you can see the 3 lines. There's 2 lines down the middle, 2 lines down the side. So that's grid mode. If I were to turn that off, now those lines are no longer there. So grid mode helps with composition, because with grid mode on, we are better able to see the root of thirds. So let's say that I am photographing this little tube of lip gloss. So if I were to put this, so this is where we can use our little backgrounds. Let's do this. So we'll pretend it's a full background. So I can turn my camera sideways, and then I can make sure that the lip gloss is either dead center, or it's in one of these lines where it's intersecting. So you can see that right now it's in that left-hand line, so it's focused there. So some other things I want to bring our awareness to are the different types of so first, when we're taking a photo, focus mode. So I'm going to also put this here and actually so here we are. You can see Mason in the background, but he's not in focus. He's blurry. If I want him in focus, I just take my finger, tap on the screen, and now he's in focus. So that's focal point by tapping. Now let's say I want my orange mug to be in focus. I tap it, and now that's in focus. And notice the lipstick or the lip gloss isn't in focus, but I tap, and now it adjusts and it's in focus. So that's how we adjust focus. So let's also, so I'm going to keep this here, and then if I drop my finger up and down on the screen, it's going to help change the exposure. So I'm going to pull my finger up. You can see the little sunshine is rising. So I always like to think, okay, it's getting, the sun's coming up. So that's super exposed. If I pull my finger down, then the sun is setting and it's getting darker and darker and darker to almost black. But if I tap on the screen, it resets everything, which can be great, but it can also be annoying. Let's say that I get this composition is fantastic. I got the exact exposure that I want, and then I need to move something, and now it reset. And I have to start all over. So there is a mode in our phones called AEAF lock mode. The way that we get there, I should be using my tripod because you can see how much movement we're getting with me hand holding. So if I tap on the screen and I focus on the lip gloss, if I tap, how the box gets bigger, and then it says AEAF lock. So now the focal point is right there on the lip gloss. And as long as I don't move my camera anywhere, front or back, it's going to continue. This is going to be my focal range right in here. So anything I put in that line is going to be in focus. If I move it way back, it's out of focus. And notice none of the settings are changing. But if I bring it back into the area of focus, I was looking at these little lines on the table, so that's how I know where to put it again. So then it's back in focus again. If I bring it forward, now it's in focus. So it's a cool way to keep the settings that we have set without, and then we can take, let's say, make it really obnoxious. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like there, I'm going to take a photo, and then I'm gonna. It didn't change. That's the point I wanted to make. Everything stays the same. So I can put another box, take a photo. Put another box, take a photo. So everything stays the same. Now to turn AEF lock mode off, all you do is tap the screen, and then it goes back. So now let's do the same thing. Okay, it's in focus. I've got the exposure I want. I take a photo. I'm going to change. Oh, dang it. But now you have to do the setting. So that's where AEAF lock mode is concerned, is you can, take something in and out, and it doesn't change the focal point or the settings. All right. And so what did I say I was going to show you? I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put my phone in the tripod just so that I'm not holding it this whole time. So it's going to be a little rocky. I'm sorry. Should have done this before we got started. There we go. So now I'm in a tripod. And I said I was going to show some editing platforms. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of here. And I'm of my photography stuff in a folder called photo video. So I'm just gonna tap on that. And oh darn it, I did not update. So this is gonna update, make sure everything else is updated. So while that's updating, I'm gonna show you a new tool that I just honestly downloaded it last night, and it's called Reflex. And this is where you can take more control of your camera features and set your ISO, your shutter speed, your white balance, and you can take control of your imagery. So ISO, and I'm just going to use the lip gloss as an example. Lay it down. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust my tripod so it can be up. So like, okay, there's my fingers. I'm going to turn it so that it's focusing on the glass. So this is where all the fun of making adjustments comes in. Okay, so for my liking, I'm going to take this. Go back here, just because I don't want to make you guys dizzy while I'm testing this. You can see all the apps that I need. It's just a lot. If I'm smart. They're different. That didn't require all this adjusting. Okay. So I'm going to go back and turn Reflex back on. So I did need my camera on so I can make some of these adjustments. So you can see this is like probably not ideal because right here on this, I'm getting the light from the neon lights above. So I brought my journal. Again, my goal is to show you like expensive options. So what I had before, that was just a dry erase board. So now I'm just going to use my journal. Try to, the cherries are in there, but we'll just try to make them part of the composition. So I'm going to put my gloss here. So this is a top-down shot. So let's say I was a maker and I wanted to do a photo of the lip gloss being opened or a video. I could do that. For right now, we're just going to pretend and the lip gloss is just going to live. So where I would place this right now is probably where those top grid lines intersect. And I'm just going to do that just for fun because I'm going to show you ISO. So ISO is the sensitivity of the camera to light. So if I decrease the ISO, so it is less, getting excited. So it's less sensitive to light. So in really bright light, if we were doing a photo shoot outside in really bright sunlight, we would want to lower the ISO as low as it could go and comfortable and still get a quality image. So I usually don't like to go below 100 but just because this is a phone app and it's not actual film, I'm going to go to here. So the next thing is, actually, I'm gonna leave it right at 100. If we, back in the day when we shot film photography, this was like when you would buy 100 speed, 500 speed, or whatever the film speed was. That's what you would be doing. So you would buy 100 speed if you were going to photograph in really bright sunlight. You'd buy like 500 speed if you're going to shoot in really low light. So shutter speed is how fast the photo is going to be taken. So you can adjust, you can see how it's adjusting the lighting. So I'm just going to adjust it to a point that feels really good. So then the next is it's EV, but what you can do is you can adjust this and it adjusts everything else. So you can see as I'm adjusting this, it says aperture priority. It's also adjusting the ISO, which is great. So you could just use that setting and make your adjustments. And then MF is manual focus. So let's say I want this, but I want it all blurry. So I could change it. Another cool thing in this app is I can turn on this little green, the circle with the black dashes through it. And what that does is it then will show me everything that is in focus. So as soon as things start to be in focus, they will turn. It will get those grid lines on it. And right now, the only thing that seems to be coming into focus is my shirt, which is weird. So I usually don't use focus. And then white balance, you can see this is super, it turned kind of a blue tint. Now it's turning a golden tint. So white balance is just a way for you to keep the whites light and find that balance. And also it keeps purity of color. All right, so the last thing I want to show, not the last, but another thing I want to show is right now that there's like a weird blurriness. And one of the first things I like to teach people, and I didn't do it in this class, is to clean your lens. So you can use a t-shirt, you can use a lens cleaner, but let's just stay focused on that tube of lipstick. Actually, I'm going to shut out of this and I'm going to go to the regular camera. And I'm going to turn off macro. And so that's not too terrible, but I'm just wiping my lens. And it's sharper. So when we clean our lenses, because our phones go in our pockets, if we were in selfie mode, our phones touch our faces, and it just creates blur in our images. So clean the lens first, and then let's see what it looks like when we go back into this. So that's one thing I think I don't really love about this app is that it doesn't have the finger tap focus. So there we go. So it is all set. I'm going to play around with this a little bit more. There we go. We can also look at the histogram to see, we want the histogram to be kind of mid. So like you can see, this is way over to one side. And you can go over here, the exact opposite direction. And now everything is super out of focus, out of exposure. So we're just trying to find a nice balance in that. And we're just looking at the histogram to determine what that looks like. So then we can just take a photo. And then we took a photo. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit. So then I'm going to come out of this and hopefully Snapseed is finished updating. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to tap, I'm going to allow full access. So you can see some of the images that we've taken. So what I want to do is use one that I took the other day of some food. And so this isn't a terrible picture, but there's like some stuff, like some splashing on the plate and like on the counter and like these little distracting things in the back. So, and it's not a terrible photo. I use portrait mode. And so in Snapseed, it is a free app. So what you can do is there are different filters that you can add onto the image that will just automatically update it. And you can be like, actually, I don't like that. That looks great. And just use one of the filters. Or you can go to this middle, it says tools, and tap tools, and then you'll see a whole bunch of things come up. So what I want to focus on first is tune image. So tune image, you can see that it says brightness up at the top. So if I wanted to make it brighter, and all you do is scroll across the screen, like drag your finger across and down, and it will change the brightness. So side to side, adjust brightness. And then I'm going to just press down, and then so up and down, we're going to adjust contrast. So if you're not sure what contrast does, you can always go from one extreme to the other. Contrast basically increases the difference between the lightest areas and darkest areas of your photo. So that's contrast. Sometimes you want more contrast, sometimes you want less contrast. And then the next is saturation. So this is, again, go to the extreme and see what it looks like. And go to the other direction, that removes the color. So, you know, never do we ever want to go all the way here. Look how orange and like the greens might look better, but the rest of the image doesn't. So we usually don't want to do too much saturation. And then ambiance, you can see again, extremes. Sometimes just a little ambiance is nice. Highlights, this only affects the lightest, brightest parts of the image. So you can see the white plate and the countertop super bright now. Or if I want to reduce highlights, then they become more of a gray color. So I don't hate bright highlights sometimes. So I'm just going to go up there. And then shadows, this only affects the darkest areas. So one direction, the beef is the darkest area, so the beef got darker. And then the other direction, the beef got lighter. So I'm probably going to go just a smidge darker. And then the next is warmth. This is like sunset. Again, extremes. So golden or blue tone. So you decide what works best for you guys out here. So that's warmth, and that's the last thing we can do in tools. So another option is to, down here you see the little wand. You can tap on that, and we're just going to see it will automatically make adjustments based on what it thinks. But I don't like those. I want to go back to what I did a little bit. So let's pretend like it's perfect. The next tool I want to show you is the healing tool. So that's it looks like two Band-Aids crossed over each other. It's the first row, 1, 2, 3 columns down. Like first row, third row down. First column, third row down. I'll get my English right. So tap on that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see what it would look like to remove some of these stains on the countertop. So I almost, without a doubt, would have cleaned off my counter before I took this photo in any other scenario. But because I wanted to demonstrate this tool, I intentionally left stuff. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But you can see sometimes it doesn't do a great job. I don't know if I really like that. But then we can zoom back out and see. You can see by the fork, it looks a little funky. So you can see there's an undo error. So I can undo, undo, undo until it goes back to what it was before. Oh, dang it. And that's why we zoom in to get closer. Thought. Be able to do this and do a better job. By zooming in a lot. I'm going to see how this works. It may not work. We'll zoom back. That doesn't do too bad. I'm going to take that out. So all I'm doing is my finger on the image, making the changes. Oops, I did not mean to do that. So I'm going to see if I can take that corner of the pan out. Take the knob. I'm going to see what happens if I try to remove this little grid thing back here. So that's not terrible. So in this app, unfortunately, it doesn't do a great job of removing large objects. And let me show you what I mean. So let's pretend all detail is done. So now let's say I want to remove this jar and box from the back. So I'm just painting it over. Oh my gosh, I have to eat my words. It did not do a terrible job. So I'm super pleased. I'm gonna leave that. So there we go. So we might go here. We'll just start to play around. But there we go. So that's a new image, fewer distractions. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit the checkbox. And it isn't perfect, but it also isn't super terrible. So I'm gonna play around. So also the thing I like to do is play with the tune image stuff first before I go in and start erasing things. Just because once you have your settings right, then you can start to erase. So that is one of my favorite editing tools on your phone. This is called Snapseed and it's free. So I love using Snapseed. So I'm gonna go ahead and open. I'm gonna open an image because it's gonna say, oh, if you open an image, you're gonna lose everything that you just did. And I'm gonna go ahead and click on one of the images that we took. Okay, that's great. I'm gonna skip. So we're going to develop this image. So we're gonna change the exposure, make it a little bit brighter. And we're gonna reduce the highlights so it doesn't have that big blaring light. We're going to reduce the shadows just a smidge and increase the contrast. Look at the structure. So I kind of want that texture of the book. And then we can adjust the saturation. Change the tint. And so we can also go in, and there's other things here, but a majority of what you're going to probably use is I'm going to tap on perspective, which is 1, 2, 3 rows, 3 columns, second row down. So perspective. And so this, you can see down at the bottom, if I wanted to, I am dragging my finger up so that it's changing the perspective. I can drag my finger down, changing the perspective. I could go side. So you can see how it's making the tube lid look bigger or like different. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that and move back in. You can rotate the image. So I just put 2 fingers on the screen and then rotate. See how it automatically fills in the gaps? See that? So we can rotate, we can scale. So maybe I want it smaller, maybe I want it bigger. That does not, I've yet to ever use that. So back to tools. We're going to rotate. To just call it good. So there's our image. So if we place our finger on the image, you can see the before, after, before. So that's a great way to be like, oh, look at the work I did. Actually, it looks more true to the color of the tube of lip gloss. And then if I want to export it, I can just go save as a copy. And if I save as a copy, it will create a copy of the original image. And then if I open it up in Snapseed, I can undo some of the things that I did and continue editing. So I'm going to just go ahead and do open. Actually, we're going to go to a completely different image. So now we're going to go into the camera again, same image, and you can see down at the bottom, there is an edit option. So the edits are not as, there isn't as much that we can do here as what we can do in Snapseed. So let's say I want to change the exposure. So I'm exposure, and I'm just going to drag this side to side to find an exposure that feels right. And then I'm going to go here and I can change the brilliance, which it seems like that's a little bit of the highlight, which is here. And then this must be shadows. And then contrast. Brightness. Saturation. definition, noise reduction, and vignette. So I am going to go all the way back over here, and the magic wand, you can tap on that and it will automatically adjust to whatever it thinks is the correct exposure, saturation, all the things. And then you can see what it adjusted everything to as you go across, which is fine. The other thing is you can add filters. So that's the original. Then this is if we did a vivid filter. So one tip that we'll go through later on is if you do decide that you're going to use a vivid filter, make sure, and then you can adjust the intensity of it. So let's say you want to do this one, you can. It's basically the original. So if you use a filter, try to use that filter consistently throughout all of your images, and then you can crop. So let's say you want to just bring it really tight in. So you can see how those grid marks appear again. So now it's making, let's say there was a label on this lip gloss and it's in right at that intersecting point of the lip gloss. And then we'll just say done. And then boom, there's an edited version of the image. And that was within the phone. So there are really lots of great options for editing in our phones. So I'm going to stop the screen share. And I just want to check in and see how everything is going and if there's any questions so far.
No questions so far. I downloaded the app, though I'm not working with an Apple product. I'm working with Samsung. Um, but even the nomenclature that you're using is I'm not familiar with it. So I was writing down AEAF and figured out that's auto exposure, autofocus. And I didn't understand either that the light I didn't notice before, but the light at sunrise is different than sunset.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't understand a lot about light, but hearing you talk about it, uh, it it's enlightening. So um, I'm looking at a photograph that I took, and I'm looking at different, morning and pop smooth on this app. So I don't have any questions right now. Still
Oh,
listening.
that's great. Great observations though. I mean, and that's the cool thing is a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, even though I'm using an iPhone, is pretty much the same in the Samsungs as what I've discovered. Samsung has done a great job with their cameras. They've done really good stuff. Um, but I've been an iPhone user almost my whole life, so I I always intend to borrow my nephew's camera and do screen record of like the different things on his phone, so I can actually show the Samsung version as well. I just can never get him to let me have his phone long enough to do anything. So one of these days, I might just have to get him to do a screen record for me and send it. Anything else?
No, well, no, I mean, I'm thinking about how to share this photo. So I'd have to email this photo to me and then I can post it on Zoom. I think I'm going to try to figure out how to do that in
So
this class.
if you took a photo on your phone, what you could do is, I don't know if Samsung's, because like with the Mac, I would just airdrop it. I don't know what the Samsung version would be, but you could also email it to yourself. If you have a Google Drive, you could put it on your Google Drive and then open it up in your on your computer and then download it that way. Yeah, there's so many ways.
It's different.
You
Okay.
might even try share and then
Share, I think, is what it is.
see if you get an option to send it, maybe share it via Zoom.
Hmm.
And Diana, when I have time, just to answer your question in the chat, when I have time, I do still do photo shoots. I don't do them as often as I used to. I primarily do like not product shoots, but branding photo sessions with clients that want pictures of themselves in different scenarios for social media.
Yeah, I was thinking about family pictures someday, like of my grandkids, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I still do. I do a little bit of that still. It's just few and far between. I wish I could get back into shooting all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if the schedules coordinate, then I definitely
Yeah.
awesome. All
Okay.
right. Did you get it, Marcy?
Oh, I'm still playing with it.
Okay. All right. So what I would like to do is it's 11:15 is to take a break actually. So why don't we just do a 10-minute break and then we'll come back in and I'm going to show you an app that I use on my computer called Lightroom and then we'll talk about if we want to do a lunch break at noon because that'll be right about the time. All right. So it's
Sounds good.
11:15, so we'll come back at 11:25.
Sounds great. I'll see you
All
then.
right. Okay. Okay. So before we get too much further in, just want to double check to see if there's any questions before I start to show you Lightroom. Diana, if you could just let me know that you're back.
No questions from me.
Okay, thanks, Mercy.
Hmm.
There you are. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to jump into the screen share then. And so Lightroom is a platform that I use to edit my photos. And this is one that I generally don't do my smartphone photos on this platform, but I just wanted to show the some of the capabilities that it has. Oops. I want to stay there. Okay. So I'm going to go from this section to develop. And now I'm going to be able to use some of the tools that you saw in the previous section. So right now, this would be the image tune. So you can see how that is a very similar icon to what was in Snapseed, where you can adjust brightness and do all of those fun things. So what you can do is you can adjust the color. So I could adjust here, change the temperature. I can change the tint. I can adjust the exposure. can adjust the contrast. And anyway, you get the idea. I can change highlights. I can adjust the shadows. I can increase the whites, increase or decrease the blacks. So it's just finding a level that makes whatever your item, your photo is, to look, and in this case, it's food. So to make it look more appealing. And we can change the vibrance, make it way brighter, or we can take all the color away. We can change saturation. Some of other things, but we're not going to get into those right now. So those are the basic settings. We can also crop the image. So let's say that I just want to pull this bottom up a little bit. The rest of it looks good, so I'm not going to do much more. So then there's the healing brush tool, which is a little band-aid. So there's a few options. There is this eraser, healing, or clone. So we are going to today use the middle one, the healing brush. And you can adjust the size. So you can see that little circle with the plus sign in the middle. If I want to make it bigger, I can scroll over here and you can see it made the brush way bigger. So I'm going to just make it that size because I'm just going to come over here and start to so what it does, oops, is it will take here and then it's going to match what's next to it. So I could heal it by mimicking what's next to where I select. So I'm going to make this brush size smaller because what I'm going to do, so I'm going to make it roughly the size of the items that I want to remove. Okay, so there's one way to do that. Oops, excuse me. Another option is to select an area. I'm just selecting files. I'm going to see what it does. It's analyzing. And now it did an okay job removing that item. I'm surprised that Snapseed did such a better job of it. But for this option, it didn't do a terrible job. And so I'm just going to click here and see what it does. And I mean, it's not doing a great job. I rarely use Lightroom to do stuff like this in my images. I mostly do this kind of editing in Photoshop just because the tools are easier to navigate. In my opinion. I've always primarily used Photoshop Lightroom to adjust exposure and do some basic things. And it does a really good job in a lot of different areas as far as being able to make adjustments. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select my subject. So hopefully it will select my plate. So if I want to add, like you can see where it highlighted a red on the plate, but it didn't get some of these areas. So I'm just going to go add, and then I'm going to go brush, and I'm going to just increase the size of the brush, and I'm going to select, I'm just going to paint over the rest of this plate so that we'll pretend like I did a really precise job. So now the plate is selected. And so the next thing I'm going to do, because the plate is selected, is I am going to double click and I'm going to say, oh, see, this is, I get confused. I think I'm in, what am I thinking? I'm in Photoshop, but I'm actually in Lightroom. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change some of the aspects. So right now, the only thing that's getting adjusted is the plate. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a new mask, and I'm going to select the background. So now it's going to select everything behind. I'm going to subtract using the brush because it selected part of the plate, because all I want to do is affect the background. So let's pretend that I did a good job. Here again, this is just a quick demo just to show you what this platform looks like. Now, it is a paid subscription to Adobe for Lightroom and Photoshop. And it's so worth it. But again, like I showed before, you can do a lot of this stuff in the free version, in the free app called Snapseed, right on your phone. Okay, so now I want to change the background exposure because I want it to be pretty light. And I'm going to decrease, increase, decrease. I'm going to increase, decrease. The other thing I can do is I can go back into the healing brush. I can do the clone. I'm trying to get rid of all of these things. So again, I typically don't do a lot of this stuff in Photoshop. So I'm going to pick an easier photo. I'm going to go over here to this photo that I took on my phone on a sunny day. And I'm just going to make some quick adjustments. So I can change the brightness. I can change the contrast. And what I want to do though is do a little dehaze. And that's it. So that's all I really wanted to do with this image. And then here you can see, like I was playing around trying to capture these rays of light that were coming in the studio, but it wasn't doing so great. So I'm going to select the subject. And so it selected me because I'm super dark and I just wanted to brighten up me a little bit. So now you can see that I went from being super underexposed to now lightening it up just a little bit so that I balance the rest of the room. So I can increase or decrease the contrast. I can decrease or increase the highlights. Maybe, but you can see, like if I did that to myself, it doesn't look natural. So I'm going to go down. So just about any time you do anything where you're like, ooh, I want to be super contrasty, and you take it to 100%, it's probably, it won't look natural. So, you know, we want to be like, I could be like, oh, look, I'm super exposed, but maybe we don't want to be that bright. Another thing I could do is you can see how my feet are getting really, really bright, is I can subtract using the brush and just unselect my feet. So then my feet just stay looking like the sun. Okay. And so then that's the image adjusted. And then I can go back into tune image. Now I can adjust all of the overall exposure. So now it's affecting the whole image and not just me. So if I wanted to go back here, back to this layer, maybe make myself even brighter, which I wouldn't do. But let's say just for the sake of creativity, we want it to look something like that. Like, and this is again where we have creative license, but we just want to make sure that if we're shooting products, that our product looks very much the same as the actual image. So let's say with this one, I'm just going to crop in to remove distractions. And now if I were to edit this and make it, and just we're focusing on the green, the contrast of the green and the brown. So let's say that I was like, okay, I'm gonna increase the exposure and I really want that green to pop. So we scroll it all the way over and look how unnatural that food looks now. So we never want to get super, it doesn't look like what it looked like on my plate either. So we always want to make sure that we're keeping things as true to the color that they were originally taken on as possible. So another thing is using the dauber tool, which is this guy right here. So I'm just going to do a quick neutral target for white balance. So you can see down in that left-hand corner seems to be the most neutral. So I'm just going to tap that. And then it automatically adjusts the white balance in the image so that if there was any orange casts or blue casts, it's going to adjust for that. And that's it. So that is how we might edit this photo using Lightroom. And again, that was a really quick sample of the tools in Lightroom that we can use. Any questions? So we covered editing. Okay, so we are close to doing some actual activities. And I just wanted to check in. It's 11:45 right now. We just took a 10-minute break. Do you guys want to do a like 20-minute lunch break, or do we want longer? We could do a 30-minute lunch break. It's up to you since you guys are here. Or do we want to just keep going and we might finish at like 1 o'clock?
I'm good to keep going.
We're good to keep going? Okay, perfect.
I
I am too.
am.
Are you good too? Yeah? Are you sure? Oh, I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I just got a new chair for my living room and I'm anxious to start cleaning and rearranging, but I can wait.
Okay, I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to keep going through and I'm going to jump back into the slides and we'll go from there. Okay, so we just finished going over some editing tools that will help with your process of, making your images look more on brand and more in line with what you want, how you want them to look. The next thing is if you are doing products or even self-portraits, using props can be a great asset or it can actually distract us from the actual item itself. So an example, a couple of image examples up here. So, they incorporated like the leaves, and then the golden tray that the CBD oils are in. And then you can see a couple of capsules on the side because they have CBD capsules in there. And then the rest of it is kind of out of focus. So in this image that what they're really focusing on is the two bottles of the oils. And then it just so happens there's some other stuff. So it's just bringing the awareness there. It's not taking away from the focal point by placing it in the little, I think it's a leaf, golden leaf uh, plate. It actually brings more focus to the items. Same thing on the bottom. It's just that nice clear background where your focus is on the brown dispenser bottles. Some other examples to think about, if you were a brand that sold coffee, you might use coffee beans and a rustic cup as prompts to create a morning brew setting. You might put your smartphone in a stylish modern office setup to appeal to professional users. Or you might, if you sell beauty products, use natural elements like leaves or flowers to convey the organic and pure nature of that cosmetic, which is in essence what the CBD oil company did in this product photo shoot. Thinking about props and mosaics and that art form and how I could see like pieces of glass or the tools that you use to create your items and staging like a work in progress with the tools and maybe the scrap pieces of glass or even crumbles from um, the filler that you use over the glass to fill the gaps. Just different elements to create the sense of being a part of the creation process would be a great use of props, and to also demonstrate the craftsmanship and the work that goes into creating, a mosaic piece to be sold. And other things you might do are, what words do you want people to think of? What do you want them to feel when they think of your brand? And then incorporate or aspects of your brand that would represent that. And then the next thing is consistent styling. Keeping a consistent styling across platforms is going to help people to recognize you wherever you pop up, whether it's on your website or your social media platforms, or even sometimes in person if they meet you in person. So if you use filters or presets on your camera, make sure that you're consistently using the same one. keep the backgrounds light and again, make the product or the subject matter the focal point. And then I'm going to show Canva also. That's going to be one of the final things that we're going to go over because it kind of pulls it all together. So consistent styling. Optimizing angles. So experiment with different perspectives. Like you saw when I was taking the picture of the lip gloss tube, there's a ton of different angles. Like there was the straight view where it was standing up tall on the table, and there was all these different distractions. And then there was the top-down view. There was tons of other angles we could have explored, but find an angle that tells the story. These are both photos that I've taken. The top one was a selfie. I think my phone was propped up upside down on my water bottle, and I set a timer and jumped in that position really quick and got that photo. And, it would have been a much different feel if it was like a super tall photo, because if you can't tell it from this image, but I'm sitting right on the edge of the cliff. So on behind, it goes down into this really steep valley. But I wanted to give this effect of being up in the sky above the trees and the treetops. And then the bottom image is just a little tiny bell that in the springtime, if I would have taken a photo of that from the top down, it would have a completely different feel than by me turning my camera upside down, getting that unique angle where you're seeing actually inside the bluebells, which typically are upside down and you don't ever get to see that perspective. So by taking unique perspectives, we're able to create a different look and feel. And here's a few more examples of perspective photography. The top two are the same grouping of weights in a weight room, and just a different feel on each of them. So again, just angle makes a difference. This top left-hand image could be mistaken maybe for a tunnel, that you're going through. And this one was meant to invoke a feeling of selection, like what weight are we going to grab? The bottom, again, this image was taken in that windowsill that I showed you guys earlier on a 3-ring binder using a piece of foam core as a reflector to help get that the rim light that you see at the top of the cherries. And then you can see in the back, there's another set of cherries behind it, but they're super out of focus. And then the image on the bottom left is just smoking salmon. And, I just got way low and level with the smoker and the salmon so that it just created this feeling of drawing you in and curiosity. So angle and perspective is going to make a huge difference in your photos. Even if you're doing self-portraits, understanding the way that the angle will affect like how you look in the photo, and also help you to maybe feel better about the photos that you're taking of yourself. And then the next is thinking about interactive content. Like how might you create content that creates a sense of the person being a part of the process or being a part of the image. One way is creating short video clips, like the one that played this is just a short, it's sped up. I do not move that fast in my practice, but it just gives an idea of like an outdoor practice. The top right image is a 360 image that just gives this immersive effect of being in like you get the full view of everything. So one way to create interactive content is shooting a video. If you make things doing top down, like showing your hands making things, or even a view of your full body and creating whatever it is that you might be creating. You can use Canva to create GIFs that highlight the product from multiple angles and show its assembly and features in different ways. And then 360 photos are great, but you do need a 360 camera. Panoramic on your smartphones is a great option. But 360 imagery or a video of 360, where maybe you get like a Lazy Susan, and then you place your product on it, and then just slowly spin it, and then it will get like that whole 360 view of what it is that you're videoing. And you could also do that for photo. So what types of interactive content might you create for your brand or business? And I will say, like, depending on what your business is, people love to see process videos. We love seeing things from like a before and after. There is something about that that just really keeps people engaged. And just to give another, this actually wasn't a smartphone photo, so I feel like I'm cheating a little bit, but this is one. I got really low on the ground. Again, this demonstrates one different perspective, different angle. I'm literally laying on my stomach shooting this photo of the two walking. I had to get up. I felt like I was doing burpees because I had to get up and then so I could capture just in the right position. Because the grass was not that tall. It's actually really short grass on a dirt road. And that the middle part that you see is actually the middle part of where on each side of that are the tire tracks of the dirt road. So it's perspective. It's a different look. It feels more like you're in this open field and they're walking through tall grass potentially. So, and then the interactive aspect of it is you feel like you have this view from down in the grass, and you're just like getting to observe these two people walking. And again, this is another one I cheated. This was not with my smartphone, but this was taken with my DSLR. But there was this beautiful moth, and it just landed on her finger and hung out there forever. And we actually did almost a full photo shoot with the moth on her finger, on a whole bunch of different angles. It was really fun. But I mean, those are the colors. It just happened to be the same color as her jacket. Like everything just meshed so beautifully. Now, if I didn't have my DSLR, if I wasn't in this scenario where I was actually taking photos, my smartphone, and I guarantee you I would have gotten almost this exact image with my smartphone. So don't be afraid to use the camera that you have with you. Chase Jarvis, one of my favorite mentors and teachers, says the best camera is the camera you have with you. And the best thing you can do is to know all the functionalities of that camera. So before we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and I already demonstrated, the different focus modes on our cameras, on our smartphones, the tap to focus and the AE/AF lock modes. And we went over exposure controls, where you can find your focus and then drag your finger up or down to increase or decrease exposures. And the one thing we did not cover was the different types of shutter release, which is click the button to take the photo. So one very commonly used one is the timer. I use that one a ton, where I'll set like a 3 to 10 second timer, and then I'll run and like pose for the photos. Another way for shutter release is the remote, like the one I showed you. It's a Bluetooth remote that connects to your phone, and you can just take the photos remotely and just do all your moves and your poses. Or if you are shooting in super low light and any amount of camera shake is going to affect the image, you would want to set your phone up on a tripod and use that remote so you're not tapping on the phone in any way. So then it's really stable. That's when those remote shutter releases are super, super helpful. And a lot of the tripods that we get now come with a Bluetooth remote. If not, you can pick them up for really, really inexpensive. Uh, so learn your camera, learn things that your camera can do. Don't be shy about going out and playing around and making mistakes, taking bad photos, and figuring out how to turn it into a good photo. And don't be afraid to ask for input or to, hear what the and here Marcia, did you load a picture? I don't see it. I just see this is the rock I dropped.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry if I interrupted you. I didn't think it would interrupt. It's a picture of a rock I dropped is the name of the picture, but it was just one that I've been experimenting with since you've been talking.
It's no, it didn't. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, look at that. No, and
I
it
took
didn't love questions. Um,
It's just a picture that I took like a couple of days ago, and I was experimenting with it with the Snapseed
so
while
amazing
you
how different things look on my
yeah.
computer compared to the big screen I'm looking at. Because on my computer it looks amazing. On the monitor, it looks like it's almost too light, but I think my computer's probably more accurate.
Well, that's the photograph without any doctoring it at all.
Yeah.
I don't have I'm way amateur with photography.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great
So,
composition. Really
but
good.
uh you were explaining something before. I'm holding on to my questions until the end. So I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No,
By
that was not an interruption. I randomly check the chat just to make sure that there isn't anything that I need to address like right away. And that was a good segue into our next slide, which is the Q&A. We're
oh,
like breezing through this section. This is another photo. This background is a photo I took on my iPhone. So I just want to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share, and then we'll just check in and see what questions you might have for me, and then we'll go from there. I must have talked really fast today. Because when I mapped this out, it took me more than 5 hours.
well then I guess I'll just ask one of my questions then. I'll likely do photography just to do it. I mean, I don't have a business. But I'm interested in photography, just getting started on it. But is it would you take the picture? I mean, I understand standing still, the tripod, because even breathing would disrupt the picture. Um, or maybe image is the word we're using these days. But does it seem like to take the picture now and then because it's all digital, to touch it up later? Is
So
that
if I'm understanding the question, to take the photo and then worry about editing later on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from the age where it was your 110 camera. You take it out and zip, zip, and
Yeah.
then you take a new picture with after you roll the camera or
Yeah,
roll.
no, I'm right there with you. I usually
Yeah.
take a whole bunch of photos and then afterwards I look at ones that I'm like, oh, if I would do this little adjustment, it would be way better. And then I'll just adjust the photos that need adjusting. Um, but yeah, that's a great question. You don't have to shoot and then edit and make adjustments, then shoot and edit, make adjustments. I would just go out and take photos. And the great thing about the smartphone photography is that you can see the image right there, and then you can make adjustments. Like if you're like, ooh, this is too bright or it's too dark, you can like change focal points. You can do so many different things to improve the image that it's just nice feedback loop that you get right away instead of like when we had back in the film days when we had to wait until it was like developed and just hope and pray that everything came out the way that we envisioned it would come out. And so it's nice to get that feedback immediately by taking the photo, making adjustments, and that way.
And I wonder too, I've never really um taken so much notice how much light and color have to do with anything. Like, when you said, does this broccoli look obscene and unedible? I'm like, well, it kind of looks the same. I mean, it did look edible, but I mean, it did have kind of a macaroni and cheese, effect to it when it got
Right.
all orange. Uh, but I appreciate you taking it to the extreme and showing us each one on both the Lightroom and the Snapseed.
Yeah,
How
and I
that's
recommend everybody when you play with those, when you're learning what contrast, what effect contrast will have, what saturation will have, what highlights will have. When you're learning those tools, go to the extremes both ways and you'll see like, oh, that's what it's doing without ever really. The only reason that I figured out the definitions of what they did is because I teach it. Otherwise, I'm an intuitive photographer. Like you're talking when you're asking about formulas and all those things, like because I learned with underwater photography and I just had to judge ISO and light and shutter speed and all that stuff on the fly. I developed an intuitive way to be like, oh, I think this needs to be whatever, and then I can adjust on the fly. But there are formulas that you can follow, but I just do it intuitive.
This is a stretch for me because I'm a very exacting person with things. And so, and trying to do things that are not exact, it's using the half of my brain that I don't use, whichever half that is. So this is a stretch for me. I have one last question. Um, when you're organizing photos, like to experiment with, I mean, I'm familiar with my computer. There's uh, files, and then there's folders, and then there's subfolder. Do you have any recommendations for organizing your photos with your experiments, like one extreme to the other, and then where you can hold them both together and compare on the computer?
Yes. So the way that I organize my photos is by photo shoot. So if I go on a hike and I do photos, I will take all those photos and they go into the hike and then I add the date of when it happened and the location of that hike. And then I can create subfolders that are the raw images. And then I have subfolders that are keepers and deep edits.
So date, location, raw, keeper, and deep edit.
So the raw is basically just straight out of the camera. That might be JPEG as well. But that's how I organize. And then each new occurrence or each photo shoot gets a new folder. And so, and date. That's how I keep myself organized.
And you keep the files on your phone? And then do you transfer the files directly from your phone to, like, say, I only work with things that are free, like Google Drive. So do you
Yeah.
download directly to your phone to Google Drive in the same order of files, Raw Keeper and Deep Edit? Does it transfer that way?
Um, well, Samsung may. iPhone does not. iPhone is annoying. It doesn't, you can't segment like into folders and they live in those folders and I can just go click on that folder. Um, what I tend to do is I plug in or I download from the iCloud because I use iPhone. And then I organize them once I get them on my hard drive, which isn't ideal, but that's typically how I do it.
Okay, that's a different kind of question though. Anyways, it's not exactly photography.
It's actually a really good question because it's one that comes up quite often. So it's a really good question. And the reason why there's a little bit of like I'm not sure how to answer is because um, the way that you segment it out is going to depend on how you want to access them later on. Does that make sense? So
Segment out.
I only access photos based on the photo shoot. So Diana Tulu, family photo session, April 23rd, 2024. That would be the folder. So Diana calls me up and says, hey, can I get, I lost my photos. Can you send me the edits again? Sure. I go and I look up Diana Tulu, family photo shoot, and then I pull up that session. Now, if I were to, and so I segment my photo shoots out by client and location or location. Um, Whereas you might segment them out with rocks or landscapes versus art or dogs. You know what so you might create folders based on what you want to look up. Does that make sense?
That's the personalization of it.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
file organization is personal. Is personal. All
yeah.
right.
And really, but what I would suggest is base your organization on the way that you want to access the photos. Do you want to have all photos of rocks in one folder? All photos of landscapes in one folder? Or do you want it segmented by location? Like everything in Concanelli is in the Concanelli folder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess better start taking a lot more photographs so that I have more categories in which to segment them. Okay, I think that answers my questions. Yeah.
Dan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think you probably answered them throughout the whole time, but I'm kind of need to recap. I know people have always wondered, when we take photographs outside, whether we should have the sun in front of us or behind us. And sounds like a side angle might be good, to kind of balance out the light and the shadow. I'm not really sure. And the
That is a
same with indoors, of taking a selfie or doing a video, where the light should be. I was thinking
yeah.
maybe to the
So that is a wonderful question. And I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to shut the lights, the overhead lights. And so right now, the only lighting is coming from the windows, which if I could get that to go away, but you can see, I'm going to just use this as an example. So you can't really see me. I'm dark, windows light. I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm not sure if it'll work. I'm going to try to reflect some light back into my face, which it's not really capturing any light. But I can do it over here. So I'm going to use my ring light to demonstrate like the different angles of light. Excuse my armpit. So what you were asking about is the angles of the light. I'm just going to turn the temperature down, or the intensity. So right now, the light source is very much over here, right? So you can see bright and it goes to shadow. So as I move, you can see how it changes the way that it looks. So you can't see as many of my wrinkles when it's right. This is called beauty lighting. When you have a ring light right in front of you, that's what a lot of people use, the ring lights. And then, but as I move to the side, you're starting to see more wrinkles and maybe less attractive things on my face. So the other thing is, you mentioned top-down lighting. So right now you can see top down, my chin is dark, my eyes are dark, but this is where I can use the reflector. Okay, so I'm going to try to be really dramatic. So there, and then if I take, there we go. See how it evens out the light?
Wow, that's amazing.
So the other thing is, if I were here, you can see how I go from lit to dark on the opposite side of the light. Is I can take my reflector, if I can get it positioned right, and now it adds some light into the opposite side.
Awesome.
So that's how we can use reflectors. And again, it's preference. Like, I typically like Rembrandt lighting when I'm doing lights for my photos, where it's 45 degrees and it's up. So it's kind of, it's not above my head, but it's kind of, it almost mimics the sunrise and sunset lighting. It has the light shadow and just makes it nicer. So this room is great because it's white.
So then
So
the
you can
same
see
goes outside to try to.
So I'm going brighter and I'm dimming this front light. So the camera is automatically adjusting to the light behind. So now it's adjusting to me. And then I can change the temperature of the light. So it goes to a warm cast, cool. You can see it's a little blue tint, back to warm, and then pure white. So that's
I'm gonna
how.
I'll have to invest in one. I'll have to invest in one of those and a tripod because I do want to learn, practice photography.
Yeah, so before I could afford a ring light, I used a $9 construction light from Home Depot. You just want to make sure that the light cast is like a pure white. I got lucky, and the one that I bought was white and it's perfect. I still use it today to help light situations.
I have something that I rent from the library. It's a Verilux Happy Light, but this is a $70 light. And I mean, it's as big as a tablet, but it also has the three, I guess you'd see it better on my face, the three cool lights. Um, but it's for free. I mean, you get a 3 week rental, and then it's usually gone a lot in the winter because people use it. It's one of those it's a happy light. SAD, seasonal affective disorder, but it's
yeah.
great for making some stark shadows and to play with lighting. But yeah, the Northwest Public Library has it in the Library of Things. It's a Verlux happy light.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other
Well,
questions?
I was wondering if I wanted to get I have so many pictures, saved on a few of my phones and cards. And if I wanted to get a bunch developed for a photo album, do you have a recommendation, where I can have that done?
I have in the past used Shutterfly. Um, and I think Shutterfly is the only one that I've used. Let's see.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've been tempted to send or some through them.
Yeah, Shutterfly. Um,
Hmm.
trying to see. There was this other one that I might have just made it up in my brain. I did. So Shutterfly is the one I'm thinking of. Um, that's probably what
Okay.
I haven't used that platform in a really long time, so I don't know what changes have come about. So it would just be a matter of experimenting and seeing
Okay.
what they
Thank
have.
you.
So all these are all such great questions. And I have one final thing to demonstrate, and it's the app called Canva, which is another way for us to display our images or edit our images. There is a free option, but there are a lot of the tools that you will not have access to in the free option. I always give this advice to everybody that I ever work with. And I always say, use the free option until you are wishing that you had the paid options. So I right now am demonstrating in the paid option. And what Canva is a platform for create if you're not a graphics designer and you don't ever want to be, and you don't want to spend the time to learn things like Illustrator and Adobe, and you just want a quick, easy way to create a social media post or to create a presentation. The presentation from today, I created it in Canva. Then you can just simply, the other thing I like is I can go social media. I want to create a social media post, and I can decide, do I want to create a Facebook cover, an Instagram reel, a TikTok video, or a YouTube thumbnail, or an Instagram story, or we're gonna do an Instagram post today. So I'm just gonna click on that, and then it opens it up. And now, what I want to do though is I want to create a post that shows multiple angles or versions of my product or service. So this one may not be the best one. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to type up here, I'm going to say art. Spell that right, I can't see. Okay. So this is okay. I don't like any of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to undo, and I'm going to go over to elements, and I'm going to do photo. Actually, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to create this from scratch. So one of the things I love is you can find templates based on you know, what you could scroll through the templates and see if there's one that fits your needs. So let's just pretend like this is the one that we want to use. And I'm going to go to my uploads, which is where a lot of my photos live. So I'm just going to start adding these photos in, and I'm going to add this one again. I'm going to zoom in to that wall. So there. So I'm just using the same photo over and over again, but I'm going to focus on different aspects of the image. And so this is what one might do if they had a piece of artwork. I just wanted to show the different elements of that art. This is way too many images. And I'm going to get super detailed. So let's just pretend like all the rest of these are perfect and framed. So this is just an example of what you might do when you have a single image of you, like, let's say you're submitting to an art show or to a market, and you're like, you only get one image. You could do several angles of the same item, capturing more and more of the detail, so that this is one image with multiple images inside. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just start deleting these out because I'm going to customize it. So the other thing we can do, this, I love that one, is we can adjust, we can move things around. So all I'm doing is clicking delete, delete. So you can see like the possibilities, right? Let's say that you also want to add a text box that shows your so we're just going to add that one, and I'm going to say our best life, and then I can add like my Insta is at Roxanne Bust, and Facebook is at Roxanne Bust, and the website is www.rbest.life. And so then there's my details. So I've just created this cool little card with my information on it. And it features my photo and all the different aspects of that photo. So let's say we have a product. Let's see if I can find a product image, a good one. Please excuse my humble. I know I have a good product image in here somewhere, but things are moving slow. Okay, this is it. So in my business, my product is me. So I actually don't hate this photo. I really like it, but I don't want the background, all that chaos. So I'm going to go edit photo, and I'm going to do background. So now I have this cool photo of me, but I don't have any of the distractions of that background. And now I can add in other images if I wanted to, like my logo. Pretty logo. Maybe not. Maybe I'll add this one in.
Could you have kept that
Canvas.
Did you click on your
If I
image?
want.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'm just wondering because I like the chair that you were standing next to and the kind of the flowers there, but uh, I was just wondering about removing the background, but you already showed us that in the other program.
No, so what, let's say, okay, so I'm gonna pop this one back in. So let's say, okay, you actually want to keep the chair, but you're and the flowers, but some of this other distracting stuff, maybe.
Well, the box is good, but the buildings in the background. That's whatever's in the back, way background.
Yeah,
But
so we also have the option to do a magic erase. So like I could say, and so all I'm doing is painting over. I've never done this before, so I don't know how it's gonna look. If I were doing this, there's a really good chance that I would be doing it in Photoshop, not in Canva. But we're gonna see what happens. Yeah, share. Okay, we'll just see what happens. No, it's not too bad. It just kind of blurred out the background even more. Let's see if we go deeper.
it'd be nice if there was a way that you could click on, I don't know, that level of focus and anything in that level of focus was blurred.
Yeah, no,
But you see how there's between the individual flowers and the chain of the chair.
Yeah. No, I mean it's you. There are possibilities, but and that's why I typically. So for me, well, let me just go back. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So let me actually find a product because that's where it's gonna make it a little bit more straightforward. Because when we're looking at the whole, and okay, so let's use this one. We're gonna go ahead and delete this guy. So let's say I just want this coffee mug. So because that's what I'm selling. I don't want any of the other stuff. Because I want to put that coffee mug on a background that looks like so that it makes it look better. So I can make it bigger. So there we go. So now I have the coffee mug there. And let's say that I want to change the color of the background to be red. I could change it to blue, change it back to white. I can change it to gray, brown, or I could do an image color, use the dauber and go and select like that red. So then it reflects the color that's in the mug. And so if I was selling a product, this is what I would want the background to look like because then it just draws attention to that product as opposed to all the other stuff. Does that make sense? So that's where this becomes super helpful. Now, if I was posting on social media, there's a really good chance that I would just use one of these images because it will, there's another option. And then I could go edit photo, and then I could do drop shadow, or I could do an out, do glow. Increase the intensity. So then it just kind of pops off the background a little bit. And so there's so many different things that you could do to create, like, the idea is that we want to bring the focus to our product and not necessarily the images, the distractions around it. So, for example, this photo that you see of my sound bowls, I really exposed it so that the floor isn't like the primary focus, but I could also remove the background, and then there would be no grids, and it would just be my bowls. And you know that, and then there's no distractions. Although so I probably wouldn't use pink background. Probably use one of my brand colors. Just keep it white. Don't like any of this, or I might use the dropper and pull one of the colors from the map. So then it's more cohesive. And then I can go in and add text and just say, so, and then want it, excuse me. But anyway, so you get the, and so another thing I could do is I could make that smaller, and then I can have the text over here. The other thing, I could go back over here and pick a design that I actually like, and let's say I'm gonna add a page. So say this, I'm gonna go B, I'm gonna B, and then add this here and remove this one. And so this is how you can customize some of the templates so they fit your brand. And then I can go into my brand kit, add my logo. And this is not any way how I would style this, but you get the idea. I just want you to be able to see like some of the different ways that we might make make our images be more. So there we go. Two different examples. And this is like just a fraction of what Canva can do. So if, let's say I wanted to edit, I'm gonna go in and I can edit photos. So you can do all the same adjustments. See that the same symbol for tune image on Snapseed and also for Lightroom, it's the same kind of slider. I can change the temperature. I can change the brightness. full disclosure, there's a really good chance that I would never edit an image in Canva like this, but it does do a good job. You can adjust texture, clarity. You can add different effects. Like if I wanted to add a filter, so you can just automatically add these filters in that down below. You can, like I showed before, do kind of like what you were talking about, see, which was like making an area more blurry. So this is where you might do that. So let's say the paint over. And even though it's pretty much blurry already, I'm gonna make it even more so. And one of the hard things with Canva is the only way to do selection is using the paintbrush, so which can take time, and it can get really frustrating. Whereas in, for example, Lightroom or Photoshop, you can just use a selection tool and it will select that whole area and then blur it out. Okay, so let's see what it does. So it just made it so you can see where I didn't select, where it's still kind of sharp, but I can also increase the intensity to make it even more blurry. So then the butterfly just really stands out. That's what you were referring to, wasn't it, Marcy?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Uh, because I could see a lot of the image in that other picture with the chair, the furniture. But still, I can see how you need a pretty tiny paintbrush to
Yeah.
get to because it's still this one blends better, but the other photograph didn't uh, separate the background so well.
Right. So that's the gist of Canva. I'll just show you behind the scenes of the slide deck. So this is the slide deck for our presentation today. And each of these is an individual photo that I added. And this actually, actually, if I could, kid. For some reason, photos are being a little, I'm not sure what's going on with Canva. They're getting ready to do a bunch of relaunching of things. And so when they do that, things tend to slow down. So none of my images are popping up. But this image is actually in this folder. Even uploads are. So, but these are all individual elements. And this was a template that I've used to put this together. And like a lot of these are images that I just like, I'm going to put images here. And if I wanted to, I could add notes. I could put things in that I wanted to be able to see and make sure that if I don't want to forget to say this, so I could put those notes here. But yeah, I mean, there's so many cool things that we can do in Canva. I don't hate the way that looks. So that was the last thing I had to share. And again, Canva has free options and paid options. I believe background remover is a paid option. Yeah, it is. But it's worth it. I believe Canva is $120 a year for the full year. And you can upload images and then you get access to all the tools. And it's just super intuitive and it integrates everything together. It's really nice.
That Adobe Lightroom was $9.99 a month. I just use it. You know if the Northwest Public Library has uh anything on photography? This is I found the notice. I found the advertisement for this at the library.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering if that was just a place that you ended up putting this presentation, or if you
That's
knew
a
if there's.
possibility. I don't really know. I contract with the Alliance to teach the workshops, and then they advertise and let people know. So I'm guessing that it just happened to be one of the locations that they had advertised.
Okay.
And I don't know that much about the library, unfortunately. Anything else? Other than that, I don't have anything else to share with you except a couple more tools on the iPhone or all the phones. All phones have this option, but I want to turn the room lights back on so that I don't look so underexposed. And I'm just gonna show a couple more features on the phone, and that's all I have, and then we'll be done for the day, unless you have any questions. So I'm gonna go turn the light on. The lovely neon lights. And I am just going to set which tripod do I want to use? I messed this one up. So I use this one. So I'm just gonna set the tripod so that it's roughly right for what I want to do. There, and I'm gonna put my phone in. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go ahead and go back into share to iPhone. Share. So now you see me in the frame. Honestly, if I was really doing photos, I'd probably put myself framed in here, unless I could find myself a wall that didn't have a whole bunch of stuff behind. So, but for right now, just for demonstration, actually, I would just move over. I need to touch my computer right now. So I'm just gonna move over here. Just feels a little bit more plain in the background. And so this is what we do, right? We get ourselves ready. So some other features that I wanted to point out is the very top, this is on an iPhone. You can see there the little triangle or 2/3 of a triangle. If you tap
Here.
So if you tap on that, you can see down at the bottom another menu appears. So you can scroll over, and then you see the little thing that looks like a clock. And you just tap. And then this is where you can turn on a timer for your photos. You can have a 3-second timer. If you have to go a long distance to get back to be in front of your camera, you can do a 10-second timer. But for today, I'm just going to do a 3-second timer, make sure everything's ready. And so I'm going to hit the timer, and then I'm going to get in position, and then it takes the photos. So I can look and be like, ah, that's okay. And the cool thing is that it takes several photos. So I can select the one that I like the best. So I'm going to go down to the camera. The timer's still set. And this time, I'm going to get in position. Probably not at this angle, but I think I'm in motion, so you can see, like, I'm looking at the camera. Probably not going to keep any of those. And so that's how you would do a self-portrait session, is to use the timer on the camera. The other things in this menu is you can see up at the top, there is the lightning bolt that's inside of the circle with a slash through it. So if I tap the lightning bolt, it's like, if you turn flash off, which 99.999% of the time, if I turn the flash off, I don't have a photo at all because I don't have flash to cover. So if you go over a little bit, or you can see raw, there's a slash through it. So I'm shoot a raw image so I get more detail in the photo. So when I go into edit, it captures more information. It's a bigger file also. It's fantastic. So I can turn that on. The other thing, if you go a little bit over, you see there's the timer, and then you can see the circles within circles that slash through it. If I turn that on, it goes into live mode. And is it captures a little bit of motion. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like. 2, 1, and so hopefully. Can you guys see that? So that's the photo that I just took. But I just turned it into a moving photo. And that's live mode. So I usually turn that, I almost always turn that because I don't ever want photos like that. Unless I'm doing like something like that, that I turn on. So some other things down here at the bottom, you can see there's 3 rings. So I can add a filter. So these are all the filters. Maybe I want to do black and white. Let's never add filters. Just because if I'm going to do anything to the photo, I'm going to do it after I take the photo and I do it in what's called post-processing. So then down here, right, you can see that plus minus. So this is my exposure control within the phone. So I can scroll, so I'm just swiping my finger across. So I'm increasing exposure and now decreasing. So you can see I'm getting dark and light.
The other way that we can do that is by tapping on the screen, sliding our finger up and down, which moves the sun up and the sun down. So it's also changing our exposure. So we can leave that there, and then this will, if you're shooting in really low light, you can turn on this night mode, and that's when, let's say, I turn the lights off, and then I want to take that picture, and then it will expose for 1 second. No, it's not. So that's a really long exposure. So in auto mode, it will just on its own determine if it needs a longer exposure or not for to 1 second. So if we were, so let's say I go back to this mode where, and I'm just going to intentionally shake my camera a whole bunch. So please, hopefully it didn't make you seasick. So it's not as sharp. You can see my necklace is not as sharp. And that's, but the camera's really good at making adjustments to keep things nice and in focus. So then this other down here is right where you can see 4:3. We can change the ratio so we can make it square. 16:9, so then it's longer. And 4:3, which is what I normally shoot, but which is a normal photo size. Only posting to Instagram, you might want square photos, but now Instagram has different formats. So 4:3 might be where you want to go to take your image. So you can adjust that ratio, which is kind of cool.
I don't understand that part. Is this like images like we used to take, uh, where it's like postcard? In the back in the day, just taking regular camera pictures, there was postcard images,
Yeah,
4 by 6 inches. Is that what the 4 by 3 4? I don't understand the ratio.
so when we look at, so hold on, I'm just gonna pull up Instagram. So on Instagram, we have different elements, areas. Sorry, my Instagram is super slow. So if I were to create a reel, the photos that are longer going to be ideal. So these ones that are, and you can see the ones that we're taking in a different angle, you can see it has the black outline. That's because of the size of the image. If I do a story, it's the same. So it crops everything automatically. If I were to do
The two images that you had right there of the lipstick or gloss, whatever it was, the two with the black background, they look different. One had a That one looks different than the one next to it.
yeah,
Oh, well, I thought the framing of it was different. Like
it absolutely. So in a
there, it looks different.
story, it's different because the ratio. So the one that doesn't have the black on the top and bottom, that is a fuller image. Whereas the other, remember we cropped it way down and made it really small. So the format of it changes. So hold on, let me show it to you this way. So if we were to go back into the camera and look at them. So look how small that image is compared to that. So that's
Oh, right.
really, really tight in. It's
So we cropped it, and this one has a whole bunch of extra space on the outside. So when we put, and this is what we wanted to, when we're taking photos, this is a great example of why the way that we take the photo matters. When we're taking images in, so all the examples I have are videos. So for like just looking at this video, this one is taken in horizontal mode, so it's longer. So it's what is known as landscape mode, whereas this is portrait mode. It's up and down.
Right. I guess I don't understand. It's a ratio, but a ratio is one thing compared to another. So, I mean, on mine,
It's ratio relative to the height and width.
oh,
Yeah. So 4:3. So it's 4:3. So it would be 4:3.
height, and then,
Whereas
oh,
this is 1:1, so it's square. So all the sides are the same.
oh,
This one is 16 tall. So 16 tall.
I guess I could just never figured that out before. But
It's a fairly new-ish feature on smartphones, so on smartphone cameras. It used to be that we had to crop everything to fit into the different formats. Everything is getting smart now, so it's actually making it so that we just have to push a button and determine the size that we want. I'm just going to take to the side. No, and so that's, and then bottom, you see that circle on it, that circle. That is where you take your camera from selfie mode, which we're in right now, to back facing camera. So now the camera's on the other side. So you can see that my camera is adjusting between lenses. So when I get really close, it automatically turns on the macro lens, which changes the framing. So I didn't move my hand. So now my whole hand is in the frame. But as I move forward, just to macro, it kind of repositions where the camera's at. So I could tap on that little flower in the bottom, like right there, little flower, tap on it, and then turn that. And then it will just only use this lens. And it really wants to switch to macro. So the macro lens is what so that's what allows us to get really close in, and I can almost see my fingerprints. So that's the different lenses. The challenge is that in selfie mode, we don't have access to all those different lenses. So even though I can see myself and I know it, as I get closer, it doesn't switch to macro. So that's one of the limiting factors. One thing that has changed with the selfie mode is you have access to portrait mode now, whereas before you did not. So as I step closer in portrait mode, you can see the background is blurred in focus. I'm just going to do a side by side. So portrait mode versus. So I didn't move, I didn't do anything. So we're just going to look. So regular. So you can see if you look at the blinds behind.
oh, portrait mode blurs the lines.
Yeah, so you can see if I zoom in on my face, where it's like a little bit, it's exaggerated, so you can see on the edge my cheek and hair where it's kind of like not sure where to start or end the blur. It's especially rough.
Oh,
So portrait mode versus regular mode. So the same area, so you can see all my flyaways. Where
oh,
so that's portrait mode versus regular. Of course, panoramic. This is, let's say I wanted to take a photo of the whole room. So I just hold the camera and I just pan around, trying to keep the arrow on that yellow line. And tell me to slow down. Just all the way around. Captured that image of the room. It looks a little distorted, but that's panoramic. And I could have gone even more. I could have gone almost a 360 view of the room. But I didn't. So it's kind of a cool option. You can also do panoramic in landscape mode. So I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to start base, click, and then go up. So this is kind of cool when you're shooting like really tall buildings to get say you want to get so you can see you're getting way more in the frame than if I were to do this photo. So now I only get the bookcases
I never played with
versus
this before.
this panel. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I don't know else on it to show you. So I'm going to pop over to my computer and turn off the screen share so that I go back to the other camera. And you can kind of see my setup here. So this is where I was just doing all these photos, and it's hands-free because I have a tripod, which makes it super nice. Otherwise, I would have had to probably go across the room and set up on the shelves, and then I wouldn't be able to get exactly the compositions that I might have wanted to in my photos. So there we go. There's a ton of great programs online that and Mercy's having fun now. That you can watch, like there's Instagram profiles, there's YouTube videos that will give you like little insights on try this trick or different things to get different effects in your photos. We didn't really get into much of that today. The most we did was like doing pano and those modes, but there are lots of ways to create different effects within your camera as well. So, you know, learning those, their iPhone Photo Academy, they have a bunch of really good free content on their YouTube channel, iPhone Photo Academy. But that's specific to the iPhone. So I bet you there's a Samsung Photo Academy out there, or you know, other options. So if you Google those, you'll be able to find all those tips for capturing the images that you want to capture in your smartphone. But the number one tip, and I'm going to do this because this is a really, really good example of why this is so important. And just so you can see the You can tell how old that tripod is because it doesn't want to open up. I'm just going to set my camera on my computer and I'm going to go back to screen share. Click all the buttons. Okay. So I am going to intentionally take some makeup from my face, put it on my lens. Hopefully I can clean it off. So I'm going to take a photo. And now I'm going to clean my lens. See how clean it gets after. Oh, muck. So cleaning, and then I'm going to take another photo. So now we'll just compare. Go between the two photos. So clean lens, dirty lens. A lot of times when we're like, my camera's not taking sharp images anymore, it's not so much the camera as much as it is the dirty lenses. So you can see how different that looks compared to that. So clean your lenses. That's usually like the first thing I say is like clean your lens and then start taking photos because it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. All right. That's it. Any more questions?
I did notice one thing when I started. I was wearing my tinted computer glasses. So that's another thing to look at, not just the lens of your camera, but the lens of your own glasses to make sure that they're not tinted for computer use. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, thank you for teaching.
Yeah, no, to that point, Mercy, I used to wear like the blue light filtering glasses a lot because I'm in front of a
Yeah.
computer quite often. And but I can't wear them when I'm editing photos or video because it changes the color. So what I think it looks like isn't what it actually looks like when I have those on. So makes a big difference. That's a really good point. Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy moving that furniture around.
Now I'm tired.
Yeah,
No, I won't
right.
eat too much lunch. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay, you
you.
too.
All right. Have a good day. All right, Marcy. Thank you.